informational meeting, our public hearing on internet safety, and our regular school board meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And if everyone could please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as we begin our presentation, our first presentation will be a capital project presentation. And as we take this opportunity to share and present information on the capital project to our community, we'd also like the school board like the opportunity to address the community about that project. We believe that this is a really exciting time in the community, and it has been a long process to get here. The process to put together a capital project is really one that is sort of an ongoing process. When we're creating one, we're looking forward at the next one. So this has been going on for over a year. It's been a very transparent process. We're very proud of the process we've gone through. There have been multiple opportunities for public input through roundtable meetings, through board meetings, through emails, conversations that we have with people in the community, and really taking all of that information from our community and the detailed analysis of our condition survey that we went through in the fall through these public meetings. We are very proud of the project that we are putting forward now to our community to vote. We want to continue that transparent process, and there are a lot of materials that the board has put together. It's important to us that we get that information out to the community, because when we built this capital project, we wanted to build a project that was taking care of the things that we have in our school district, also looking towards the future of Iroquois and building towards that, but also being fiscally responsible to our community members. So at this time, we are 2 weeks away from vote time. It's important that we continue to make sure that information is out there, and to do that, we just want to highlight some of the things that we have done to get people to have the information they need to cast their vote in our voting process. But before I say that, in the interest of transparency, anybody who is watching us live streaming now, in some ways we're apart, but we're connected more than ever. Text your friends, get them to hop on. This is also, the meeting will also be recorded, and so people can go onto our website and watch the meeting at a later time if they can't be here now. There are multiple ways that we have done, and now we need people to help us to spread that word. On our district website, you will find that everybody should have received their newsletter from the school district. A copy of it is also on the district webpage. There is a one-page informational flyer that can also be accessed through the school district webpage. That is also has been and is continuing to be in the process of being delivered to community organizations, businesses, to get the word out to people in a quick one-page format. There's a promotional video that explains the scope and the nature of the capital project that can also be accessed on the school district website and has been shared in social media, and we encourage everybody to continue to share that to get information out to other community members. Mr. Schofield, I think, will address later. He has taken questions ahead of time for this meeting that will be incorporated in the presentation. So any questions people had prior to tonight's presentation, hopefully we can address now. And any future questions, we also plan on holding another meeting, that the date and time I will leave to him to announce. But another format for people to share any questions that they have. Again, we remain committed to making sure that people have every bit of information that they need to make the vote that they would like to vote in October. So with that said, I will turn it over to our capital project presentation, and we thank everybody who is joining us remotely and in person.
Yeah, thank you. And if Matt would just click through maybe to the next slide so people at home could see right there. That's just what Sharon was talking about with the next steps. And she said at a future date we would talk about another meeting So once this meeting is over, we will have on our website the coming of a link. It'll be saying what time it's posted. So on October 1st at 6 p.m. would be the next meeting. It'd be a team meeting where people could log in. If you have a question, you would type it in the chat. It's the same thing I did with the reopening of school. I had 3 of those meetings. This will only be one on October 1st at 6. So at about 5:50, the link will go live. You can click and then come in. Even if you don't have Teams on your computer, the link will take you. It'll run automatically. And I'll just go through and help you how to post it. In the next slide, as Sharon was saying, you can see the things that you can do to help spread the word. And as she said, it's really great to spread the word at this time, because as you get closer and closer to it, keeping people reminded of it. So now we'll just get Matt to go right into my presentation. It's very similar, in fact, pretty much identical to the one I did a few weeks ago, because the project hasn't changed. And I do have Nicholas Humphrey here from Campus Construction. Here's our construction management firm, and they were very helpful in putting together the PR and the information going out. And I do have Tim Mersloff from our architect firm, Gordon Jones, and he also has been very helpful putting the different documents together, the pictures, and right now they are, John, they're sitting at the town hall for people that are moving around to the town hall at this time. So on the next slide with the capital project, the agenda for tonight will be just the meeting process, areas of focus, scope of work, potential timelines, finances, and voting information. And what I did is I took all the questions we received, about 8 people, I'll say, wrote in ahead of time, and I took their information and I actually wrote it on the slide that it would best fit. There were a few left over for the end in the questions section, so therefore I'll be answering those there. So I will actually tell you when I'm answering some questions on each slide. The capital project process, probably won't talk too much about this because Sharon really went over this quite well. And we looked at community recommendations, we assembled the team, and then we did a building conditions survey. We do one of those every 5 years, and this year we actually did a little different one, because usually the building condition survey goes to the state. The state didn't require it at this 5-year cycle, but we still did one anyways, because we have a long-term plan of looking every 5 years to do a project. You'll hear when I talk about financing, of having money for the reserves, of getting money to the reserves, and that way we build it up over time. It is your tax dollars, but please remember, reserve money is your tax dollars. It's just funds that we didn't use during the year because, you know, we were able to just be a little frugal in one area, or maybe it didn't snow as much, so we didn't use as much salt, all these little areas where we can save the money, much like you do at home. You keep saving away, and then you can put a new roof on your house. Community discussion was the next one. There were multiple community discussions where people came in, and then the board really did a great job of listening to those and then taking those and putting them in wants versus needs. And that really identified the project focus. We researched the different options, and then, you know, we weighted the cost versus the benefits, because we really want to be forward thinking, what can we do now that's going to be built upon in the future, and nest projects, and really what's going to benefit the students, what's going to help the instructional programs. But we also have to keep in mind that these buildings have been around for decades, and you know, they're getting older, and what parts are at the end of their life and we have to replace. And then final, what we really heard from the taxpayers is no tax impact. And what we mean, let's define that, because different schools might define it differently. And what we mean by this is how we're going to finance this project is through state aid and the reserve. By putting those together, the reserve will cover what state aid doesn't. And one of the major questions we've had, you know, it seems to be a theme, and I'll hit it later in the finance again, is, well, what happens if state aid doesn't come? You hear the governor talking and saying, well, he's going to hold state money back and everything. Well, right now, in every April, by April 1st, they're supposed to adopt a budget for the state. And when they adopt it, was a little late this year, they adopted it, they have in there the formula for how schools will get aided. And that's locked into the rules and laws and regulations right now. And so working with our financial advisors, that's all locked in based on when the vote takes place. It's not when construction starts, it's not when you borrow the money, it's locked in when the vote takes. So therefore, the regulations now are what put it in place. And so that's an important concept to note. And also later I'll be talking about where all the state aid payments are actually, even for September, are coming from the state. They're not withholding anything. I'm not saying that the state is in, a great financial picture. I'm just saying I think they're realizing the importance of schools, and that funding is coming at this current point. And for the future, for the projects, when we would actually be getting the aid, that's a couple years out. It's not during this year at all. So hopefully that answered the question, and I'll be reviewing that again later. And if John has any more he wants to add at that time, he can. Going on to the next slide, what's the project focus? What are the areas that we're looking at? And, first, and we should always be looking there, the educational programs, definitely right neck and neck with that. Maybe they should be next to each other, would be the health, safety, and accessibility. Because as you can see during this time of COVID, safety is very, very important. And then you have the mandatory code requirements. They change over time as they see what's happening and just make it a little better for everyone. Site reconstruction, taking care of the site. As I said, things wear out. And then building reconstruction. What can we do? What are we improving? How are we taking care of the buildings? Anyone on the board have any questions at this point? So when we start to look at this project, we have district-wide improvements, things that we want to implement throughout the whole district. And so right now, I don't know if they're original, but probably everyone that's listening to this was here in school when these public address systems and clocks were here. And why that's so important now is a safety issue. The address systems, getting communication to people knowing what's going on, being consistent. This is where this address system comes in, and looking at that, the other concern that we've had is the different unfortunate situations we've had in other schools, and we'll be able to install a blue light emergency notification. What that is every single one of these new panel clocks announcement systems we put in, because they're not a clock anymore as we think of it with a speaker next to it, it's all incorporated into LED screen, and they would actually, if anyone in the hall, any student, teacher, could actually pull this time. Think of a firebox, the red ones, but think of a blue one near it. And if there's an intruder or something else, emergency going on in the building that's not a fire, they could pull this. It would trigger 911. The office would know what's going on, where this is happening. Every single room would know this is happening. And with the new panels we're putting in, we could actually put a message to the rooms and let them know what they should be doing for safety at that time. It could actually automatically trigger announcements for what we designated as. So if we want to go into lockdown when it's pulled, we could go right into a lockdown. And that's the blue light emergency system, and we'd be doing this in every single building within the district. Again, just to increase the safety for everyone, the comfort level and security. Is there anything from Nick or Tim that I should add to that? No? Okay. So let's move on to the buildings. Elma Primary. So we're going to do some work at Elma Primary. So right there, we're going to replace that public address and clock system I talked about in the blue lights. But also what we have experienced are more people. It's great to have a lot of parents come. Maybe not during COVID right now, but definitely in all the other years, where they come to different events. And it happens a few times a year, and they're out there on Rice Road, and that's not the best setting. And so it was brought up by the board that we'd really like to see some parking lot expansion there, and so we're able to do that. That's what we're looking to do in this. It's a safety thing. It would, even right now with parent drop-off of what we're doing with COVID, it would have helped if we had that in place now. So there's a lot of uses for that. And also air conditioning in the cafeteria as the weather's changing. We are seeing the periods of where it's warmer in the spring and fall a little longer. So, I'm expecting to see it warm up a little bit now. And if we go to the next slide, you can actually see where the parking lot area would expand. I want to say it's about 17 places, give or take one or two. And so we're able to expand out there and create another safe environment for people to be off the road when they come to see their children at different performances. And it'll also help in parent pick up and drop off significantly. Any questions about Marilla? I'm sorry, Elma. We're going to Marilla next. Okay, so let's go to Marilla. So at Marilla, we're going to replace the public address system, the blue lights, but also the hot water heater needs replacement with a new recirculating piping going around to keep the water moving. So you have the water when it turns on, rather than trying to run it through the whole plant, it actually, or the school, it'll actually turn on and be warm there. So that's using less water. It's a little more efficient. And the hot water heater, I know at my house, I've gone in the basement. I'm wondering why it's all steamy down there. And it just rusted out at the bottom. Well, it's getting towards the end of the life, and it hasn't leaked yet, but we don't want to wait to that. And knowing this is coming, this is a great time to do it. Again, we're installing the air conditioning in the cafeteria. which is great for the students. And why we picked the cafeteria, as you'll see in all the buildings, is really, that was intentional, because every student would experience it during lunch, but then there's open times in the morning and afternoon where other people could come down and take breaks. So it's not that it'd only be used part of the day, it could be used significantly throughout the whole day. And it'd even be where, all the first grade could come in there, or second grade, and they could do a group lesson. So things like that, you can be laddered into. Renovation of the kitchen fire safety wall. So if you're in there where the student line goes through and you're walking, you kind of see a wood glass wall, and the fire rating is not significant enough in case there was something to happen in the kitchen, because we want the students safe. We have enough egresses, but we want them to have time to get there, and that's what this fire wall will do. So we need to improve that. That's a mandate and a safety requirement. The existing parking lot reconstruction, you'll see that in a minute, which will have paving, sidewalks, curbing, and storm drainage. So I'll talk about that in the picture. And then this is a great thing, the solar panels on the roof. We also talk about that when we get to the middle school. And we're putting solar panels on this roof because we just replaced that roof in the last project. And so with having a new roof, putting solar panels on it, they'll age out at about the same time. And so that's, I think, a very intelligent looking long-range future. Plus, the solar panel project itself will actually end up saving the district, we're estimating, over $10,000, probably close to $20,000 a year annually by installing these solar panels. So not only will it pay for itself, it'll actually have a reduction for energy in the future. So now if we go to the next one, you can see the parking lot on the page, and we did get a question on this. Well, why are you adding this parking lot? I mean, we were able, and thank you to the church next door, we use their parking lot. Why are you adding parking places? So let me correct that thing that hasn't been clear, I take from that question. We are not adding parking places. So there's no addition of anything in here. What it is this section is getting it towards its end of its life. And then when you look coming out of the building, there's stairs. And those stairs are really getting dilapidated. We actually put on metal angle iron, I'll call it, or treads that were put on there now to cover up where they were cracking and breaking and falling apart. And so for efficiency, we're actually going to change that and put a ramp in. We need to extend it out a little further, which is why we're bringing this out from the building, which will also be safer for the children. When they get out, there's a longer distance where they can wait for different cars, parent pickup. And so that ramp will also be efficient for plowing, and also it's handicap accessible by having a ramp right there at the main campus. The other ramp was way down at the end, and so you had a trigger, and it was longer, and this will make it much better for those individuals. So to the person who asked that question, we're not adding parking places. We are fixing what we have and maintaining it, and then adding in stuff for ADA and safety. And the next picture is one of the solar panels. So you can see all the different solar panels we're putting on the Marilla roof. Is there anything anyone thinks I'm missing, or questions on anything? I know the board's heard this a lot, but and I appreciate all the time you've done with this, so thank you. And I mean, really, the board members very well know this whole project. Wales primary.
Can I just chime in for a minute, because I know that we did have one. People question why some things and not others. So I just want to point out again, when we look at each of these buildings, that building condition survey and those conversations really have a much more exhaustive list, and that these are the things that were the most that needed to be done the soonest, that were the most relevant. So I don't want people to think we just randomly picked these. It definitely was through that process of eliminating the things that could wait to get to this place.
And I think that's a great point, because any infrastructure there are definitely other things that we could have picked to work on, but these were the highest ones. When you put them in order, these were the ones that we felt were the most crucial at this time. And we also wanted to stay with a no tax impact. And so there's only so much money in the reserves, which gives us the limit of the total capital project that we're going to put out to the public to stay within that. Wales primary, so you have the public address system and the blue light emergency notification system. And again here, the hot water replacement. with the recirculating piping, same reasons we talked about in Alma. The air conditioning in the cafeteria, same exact reasoning as we have in the other 3 primaries. And then again, here's the fire safety wall. We're going to be doing that in this building. Exact same reasons, just to create that safeguard for our children in case there's an unfortunate situation in the cafeteria. And replace gas piping to the existing emergency generator. So that's another thing that's reached the end of its life, and we're needing to replace that because we want those emergency generators supplied with the fuel to keep them running in case there's an emergency. And I know that in our buildings with the different storms we've had here, the storm in November a few years ago, the October storm, that we do use our buildings for that. We have opened them up to the public, so it's the Red Cross is another one that comes in and uses our facilities too. So really having this as a safety feature for all the communities as a whole is very, very important. So we can give back to the community that gives so much to us. And then there's a map of Wales, and you can see where that fire safety wall would go. Then we're going to move on to the middle school. And the middle school, for people here that have a longer tenure in the district and grandparents, really please remember the II building is now part of the middle school, just for that quick reminder. So when we look at the middle school, we're going to replace the public address system, and probably this is the building that really this system is having the greatest issues. So teachers do have some frustration with some of the announcements here, and this will greatly help. And then we have the safety, the emergency blue light system. And I think one of the things Sharon mentioned about looking at the STEM and science classrooms, that's where we're going to be looking in this building. I was a science teacher for over a decade, and I went back to the district I was in where I saw my room, and it was very small, and they've upgraded to do more with this. And it's very important because how you teach science now, how you do STEM, and in looking at that, I could just see, and I fully imagine our science teachers, when they see this with STEM and where they can go in the children and the changing of technology, will just have a huge ability to reach where students are going to need to be when they're going to college, going out in the workforce, and give them the experiences that really they need at these times, and having the space and the equipment in there to do that. And then there's some replacement of bathroom urinals. Just the piping has worn out in this. I think last time I talked about this, I mentioned me repairing a sink at home, and I grabbed the pipe to unscrew it, and it just fell off in my hand because my house is from the 1950s, which ironically is about the same age as this building, and so therefore it's it's time to replace those. The stormwater sewer piping, again, wearing out, end of life, and we want to keep maintaining that so that we're able to take care of all the water here. ADA compliance, we have restrooms near the main office, and when I walk in there, it's tight for me, so I can well imagine someone that is handicapped going in there. They really do need the space, and we need to afford that for them. I think that's a great thing to do for the ADA. Roof replacements, we'll see a picture of that coming up. They age out like any other roof, and so they need to be replaced. So if people remember the last project, we did the south end of the middle school, so this project would be taking care of the north end. And then solar panels. We're going to be putting solar panels on the new roof. Again, the same logic as Marilla, and then we'll generate that savings back to the public with that. So if we, go ahead.
Doug, yeah, I have a question on the solar panels for the middle school.
Yes.
It seems that we're covering, much more of the roof area at Marilla, but we're not, doing as much here on the middle school. I was just wondering if there was a reason.
Yeah, there is actually a reason with that, and I don't remember the kilowatts, but for the different grants we'll be getting to help fund this, so it takes burden off the taxpayers. There were limits of where we could get in there with the size, and that's why we're doing it of this. So I would fully imagine I'd like to, in the future, keep adding on solar panels, especially at the new roofs we're doing. And so I could see that as we're going to have our strategic planning, and I would hope that would be something that is discussed and brought forward, that we keep moving in that direction.
So basically the square footage that we're seeing here maximizes whatever benefit we're able to garner as far as getting grants and so forth.
Yep, and that actually was the whole reason behind that.
Okay, great, thanks.
So let's see, the picture that's up, if we go to the next slide, you can see the rooms. And so I mentioned I used to be a science teacher, and so in the rooms now, The space needs to get up in general science classrooms in the middle school up to 1,000 square feet. We're under that. And even just the way the laboratories, the islands are set up for the labs, it makes it very cumbersome to walk around the room. It used to work very well, but now when we're trying to do, when we have different technologies with the STEM, we need to have a room. And what we're really trying to create is a room that will be able to be modified and changed as technology changes over time. So we don't have to come back and keep redoing it. There'll be more of an open layout where we'll bring in stuff, have it portable, have the power sources, and then be able to take it out. And definitely we'll be using the science teachers, STEM teachers, technology teachers as we design these rooms. And the next slide is showing the roof, the old II or the North Middle School. And you can see the green is 2018, which is the newer roof from the last project. And the red is from 1996. So therefore, you know, it's 2020 right now, almost 2021. And so I think that roof is done quite well. But it's time, and I greatly appreciate it because, you know, in the spring, there were buckets right outside the hall as you walked around, and they should not be in the hall, you know, during the rain. The next picture is a solar panel, so you can see exactly what Chuck was talking about, where there is other roof space that we're not currently putting solar panels on, so we have room to expand this in the future. But right now, this is where we are with the solar panels to maximize for everything. Any other questions, comments? High school. So the high school, again, we're replacing that public address system, the blue light emergency. We've already talked about that. And the STEM and science classrooms, renovation upgrades. So really right now, the middle school has done a bunch. And if you have students in the middle school or even maybe freshmen in the high school, you know we've done different classes and really broaden in STEM, but we need to keep growing. And once they have this in the middle school, they need somewhere to go when they're in the high school. You just can't offer something and then stop and say, well, it's great, you know, you played a modified sport or you got your first, you know, year of piano and now you're done. If you love it, you need to stay with it, and there's a lot of different fields in this. So the science, you can see the STEM science rooms, renovation upgrades, and then also with the STEM technology woodshop classroom, renovation upgrades, and all those for all that same reasons I said for the middle school of bringing in the new technology, the new systems, so that when these students go on to college or career, that they work right into there. It's a seamless fit for them, and they're ready to go. And then here's the air conditioning cafeteria, so you can see it was in all the buildings. And when you say, well, what about middle school? Well, it wasn't on this in middle school because we actually did that in the last project. So that's why you don't see it on this project, because it's already in the middle school. So it's really just taking care of all the rest of the schools. And then if we go to the next one, you can see the picture, and that's where you can see where we're expanding those rooms. We're actually at the bottom of the slide, the green and blue with the lines through it. That's where we're taking 3 classrooms and turning them into 2. And at the other up where the wood shop is, this is how they wanted to reconfigure that. So it actually is going to match the configuration that's working successfully in the middle school that we did in the last project. So if you see, there's kind of a theme here where we're moving through, and with, you know, long-range planning and thinking of the future where we're providing as we do the laddering of these projects. Now the other one, which most people seem to talk about, they look at this project and it's all they talk about, and really I think you got to go back and look at our focus, because there's a lot of instruction that's taking place, but site improvements. So if we go to the next slide for site improvements, we have the reconstruction of the concrete wall, the wastewater settling tank. That's a fancy way of saying how we take care of sewage on the main campus. We have a plant that's down below the hill, and there's a retaining wall in there that's concrete, and it needs to be replaced. It's falling down, and in order for health and safety, that definitely has to be replaced. And then there's a major part of reconstruction of our athletic fields across the street from the main campus. So if you're here and you're looking at the main campus, it's on the opposite side of Girdle Road from the main campus. And what this will include is a running track. Well, why are you replacing a running track? We have one. Well, we do, but it's at the end of its life. So when we talk about financing, that's very important to remember, because the cost of doing this entire athletic field, even if we did nothing, the track's at the end of life. We have to do a lot of work on it, so that would cost a lot of money. New fencing around the track area, multi-sport synthetic turf playing field, new bleachers with a press box, and again, that's where the bleachers, they've been on a few building condition surveys, and they're at their end of their life too. And if you go there, it's like missing handrails walking up on it because of when it was built, when it was designed. And so this needs to be replaced too. So that definitely has to be done. And then in putting in a field, you need the field lighting. With the field lighting, we are going to put in efficient lighting. And we're also really now there's been a huge development from when we put the lightings on the field we have now back in 2005, right around that area. I might be off by a year, to now where they're very directional. Now you're still going to get spillover. With any light you do get that, but they're much better than they ever used to be. So if you went in new fields, you would see that. Scoreboards, there's utility storm, power required for the field, new parking lot lights for safety, and a new sidewalks and curbing, obviously, for people to walk around on that field. So let's go to the next slide. And one of the questions I had for this that was sent in by someone is, can you prove the new field would increase students' scores by even 1 point? And there are studies out there. They don't equate to any scoring, but really you have to think of the student as a whole person. And how are we developing the whole person and providing experiences for them? And after-school athletics provide a lot of this, but we also have to remember is one of the main reasons we're putting this field in is for PE classes. So when we look at it, I mean, the last couple of weeks have been beautiful, but rain's coming. It's going to come soon. And when it does, and we still have that nice fall with its warms back up to the 70s, and it rains in the morning, or it's very dewy, kids can't go outside and play, phys ed. It's all wet, and then they come in with socks that are soaked, shoes that are wet. But by having a turf field, they can get right out there. They can get out and play immediately, and this is why we're constructing it where it is, so it's at a middle distance between the middle and high school, so they both can be out there and using it. So we're going to have play on it during the day for PE classes, and despite COVID, everyone says, get outside now with COVID, but even without that, getting outside, like coming here, I walked outside to walk here, because being in a building, being in there, getting outside, so we can get the PE classes out there. That is great, in getting out there more often on this field that's lined, and it'll be lined for multiple sports. I mean, field hockey, the soccers, lacrosse, it'll be lined for all those. I mean, football will be on it too, but we will have all those lines on it, so there's multiple sports they can play. They can section it off, so there'll be, multiple classes could even be out there. Another question I had is the King Memorial, will it remain intact? And yes, it will. If you kind of look at that picture, you see a little brown box, and right by that brown box, there's a red bench that's over there. There's a memorial for an individual, the student that we lost, unfortunately. And when you look at this, it will still be in the same place, and it shouldn't be disturbed at all. But it's also of such a construction when we put it in there, when we worked with the family, because they're the ones who took care of all of it. And thank you for doing that. So we have that memorial here, that we would be able to move it and angle it in case anything's done. But right now, we should not have to touch that at all. And so when you look at the slide, you can see where it's located. You can see on the bottom of it where you see some triangles. That's where the shot put, the discus would be. We have our pole vaults. And here's one important thing to notice in talking to the coaches and even thinking of the neighbors. The large blue line would be the new bleachers. And the reason we're looking to put that on the west side of the field is, one, because of the sun. It works well there, but also it was just like a shield for noise. It would help deflect noise back onto the field, and that was one thing the coaches and everyone were thinking about, were how would that do, so therefore it's respectful of the neighbors. So looking at questions I have here. It appears the field is on the west side of the road. How will the loss of the fields in that area be addressed? So in this, there's 2 soccers and a lacrosse field there. So of those, that is where they would be sharing that turf field on the synthetic field, and they would be on that and playing there, so that's what they could take over, because unlike grass, it doesn't have to rest. They can play on it all day for PE, and then they can go out there and have their practices. We still have the 1 soccer field. We have the field. What's that? Yep, and we also have the field where the field hockey is now, where that can be expanded, and field hockey can be north. And right where that field hockey field is, that's where our JV, right? JV's over there, baseball. And modified. I knew I was off on that a little bit. And so they're over there playing. And so where would that diamond go? Well, Mr. Carlin, with his buildings and grounds, he's here too today. He's the superintendent of buildings and grounds. And we've actually already cleared there's a sewage drain, an area there that runs. We've cleared that, so where the varsity field is, we could put it right down there by the varsity field. We'd move that down internally, and by having it down there, now you'd have baseball all in one location, so the coaches would all be there together. And I'm not saying they should practice together, but they surely would have that opportunity. How it would be paid for, that would be done, that would be through our regular district, would be taking care of that with maintenance. What will happen with the current field and how it's paid for, that's what we talked about with the baseball, moving that down there. We did pay to have the softball field skinned, so there might be something where we do hire someone come in and do some skinning to make sure it's right, but that's where we would have it. And now I have to I ran out of space there for my questions, so I have to jump over here. What does the district intend to do to mitigate or otherwise address impacts of the new facilities upon the district neighbors? So yeah, there are neighbors where they're just like there are neighbors all around the district. And so one thing I mentioned was definitely putting the bleachers, as long as it's okay with SED, that we would put the bleachers on that side. There's already trees and foliage over there. We would not be taking any of those out on the property line. I've already worked with some of the neighbors over there where they said there were different lights shining from the building. So we'd work with them and see what we could do, what they think might be beneficial that would be helpful there. And also by having the press box on that same side in the bleachers, the speakers would be coming out from that area, so they would be behind it. Am I saying there would be no sound? No, I am not saying that. I am just saying we're doing these things to try to mitigate anything that's going on there. So they're asking about impact, noise, lights, and other potential nuisances. So in nuisances, I think that would be one thing with individuals walking over on their property. I can see that as being a nuisance. And at a lot of the games, if we find that to be an issue, we would be hiring chaperones to be in there. I know at some of the football games, we even hire some police officers to come on and take care of that. And it says to avoid potential claims and litigation against the district. And it says similar claims were brought against the Tonawanda. And with that, I'm not familiar of that one. I did read the brief that the individual sent me on this, and in looking at it, it seemed like they had a lot of different things going on, because they talked about alcohol bottles and garbage and everything being on there, and alcohol is not permitted on school property, and we do not, smoking's not permitted here. And if someone's walking across the street, even now, to someone else's property, we go over there and say, no, you're here, you're part of the school, you can't be doing that. And we'd be using our SRO, our school resource officer, who is an Almatown police officer, to help enforce all of that. Another question we had is, are the baseball and softball fields part of this plan? No, they're currently not part of this plan, and I shouldn't even say currently, they're not part of this plan, because we're not looking to adjust it in any way. And will they get turf or shelter dugouts? At this point, we're not looking at that, but I'm pretty sure that would probably end up in a long-range plan. I don't want to say definitely, because that will probably come out when we're doing the strategic plan. Was there anything else with this any of the board members wanted to bring out? I think the big thing to note that when we go to a synthetic playing field is really the return on your investment, and how much more you can use that for the different sports, and how much more often. I mean, our fields are looking great right now, but we haven't used them since March because of COVID. And so when you're having different things over the summer, you do get to wear out in the creases, the turfs. It's been dry for the last 2 weeks. The ground starts to get hard, so any divots that are put in there are locked in. And with the artificial turf, you don't have this. You can use it. We would start at 8 o'clock in the morning, the first period. We could use it straight through the day, then have the 3 practices in the evening, and then repeat it again the next day. And that is that big return on your investment that we've talked about. Going on to the next slide, you see the project timeline. So you can see when we talked about, and when we talk about finances here in a minute, you can see that this construction wouldn't be taking place until the end of 2021. And so therefore the state will definitely be in a different situation. I'll let you imagine which way it's going to go. But then you have, in 2022 is where the construction will be taking place. Now we'd be starting different construction parts of this at different times, because there are some things we might be able to start in the winter, and other things we wouldn't be able to start until they're spring outside. So I'll say the parking lot at Alma, would be something we would have to wait for the weather. The STEM science classrooms, we would have to wait. But the solar panels at Marilla, that's something, that's cost savings. We can start, right away and get moving right into that. And this is where I get onto the next slide where it talks about the financing plan. So in here we have the revenues, and you can see the state building aid of the 13 million, 13.2, 13.3 million to get up to our 19 million. The rest is all the capital reserve or money that would be the capital funds. So that seems to be the one, and there's different there's different Facebooks where I think it's being posted. Well, what's going to happen? We're very concerned. Who's going to be left with the bill if the state doesn't come through? And I think that's very important to know, and that's one of the first questions. What if the funds are not there or less? So when you think of it, the state committed in April to lock in the percentage of what we're going to get. And so that's locked in. But things, what would happen though, if you see where the construction is and the vote now, what would happen if something happened and they weren't there? We won't move forward with the project. What your vote does, it gives us permission to move forward, and it gives us the permission of the amount to spend that 19.5. And as people know, with the other projects I've done during my tenure here, we have always stuck with a no increase to your taxes. And once we say it, that's really what we're going to stick to. That's what the board has said that they're committed to. So with this project and the different pieces, we would stop parts of it and say, we're not going to do it now. The funding's not there. But again, you can say it's committed in there. We do have the reserves. So therefore, right now, I don't see why that would happen. But that's the safeguard that we have there. So what would happen to the pieces that we said, hey, we're not going to do right now? So let's say it's the middle school, part A. I'm not going to name anyone because I don't want people to think, well, we've made a decision anywhere, but middle school part A. Well, you still gave us permission to do that work. So when the funds are available, now we can do that work because this is all important, essential work. It's to meet the guidelines, the mandates, safety. So it really needs to be completed. And as the buildings age, we'll just be adding to it. So this will be sitting there ready. This is why it's good to do it now, because we'll be in the catbird seat, if you would, that we're ready to do it. If something unfortunate has happened, that when a situation changes, we can move right into it. But right now, everything is looking good from the state.
Can I just interrupt there because
yes.
we are sharing. Sometimes I think we're sharing so much information, and we have heard it so many times. And when I have talked to people about the project, this is the number. There's two questions I hear, but this is the number one question I hear. When I look at that chart and it says $13 million is coming from the state, and when I'm watching the news and I'm hearing about financial challenges of the time that we're in, I think there is, again, this feeling that we are going to have to pay that $13 million if people vote to move the project forward. And that is not where we're at. I understand we're saying about parts, but I think it's just such an important piece for people. I wouldn't be supporting us putting out to vote if we really thought that would be where we would end up.
Yeah. And that's what I actually wrote here. Perfect timing, because I say that is the main theme, the financial picture in New York State and the impact on state funds for the project. I think that's a very appropriate question for everyone to ask. And if we back up one slide, and you can see that's another piece we have to remember, that even as we develop this, we have time to watch that financial picture. This is built in with this timing by having it in October. October 6th is the vote. We have that time to watch to see what's happening and be responsive and to take into account, because we definitely, I think Iroquois has really always been, good financial stewards of everything and very conservative in how it spends and what it looks to do with its funds. And I don't think the board wants to break that track record. That's where we're pretty set of how we look at it. It's our home. It's your home. It's owned by the community, and we want to make sure your state funds that you pay in state tax dollars, because remember, all the money, whether it's state or reserves, it's your money. It's your tax money, but you're paying the money to the state, and we want to bring it back here to you. We don't want it to be you pay it to the state and then the state divvies out to other districts. We want to bring it back, and here's how we can bring it back. Turn on your mic, please. It's hard to remember the mics. We're still getting used to our new system.
Green light. So just to clarify, the state has already passed the funding for education for this year. and we are voting this year. So the money has already been allocated and designated for education for this year. So when we vote, it's still this school year.
Yes, it's all in this school year, so, what's the guarantee of state funds? And that's it
Okay.
when they,
Can-
well, go ahead.
Let me finish.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you were.
No. So when we vote, and it's in October of 2020, and then SED is going to review the plan, still in the 2021 school year,
Yes,
which we still are within this budget cycle, they can look at our current, what taxpayer dollars have already been allocated for education. That's where they're going to review our vote. They're not, so it's a good time to do this, because in the future, next year or the year after, if they approve it, they're approving the whole amount, right?
yeah, they're approving, they do a final review at the end to make sure everything is what they call aidable, but you're absolutely right. The only thing I might tweak to make sure it's very clear to people is they're approving the percentage of aid we're going to get.
Right.
So it's funded over 15 years, so
Okay.
they'll be charging tax dollars, state tax dollars for 15 years to pay for it. So it's not like the state has $13 million sitting there, a pot marked Iroquois. It's, they have said, we will fund you at this 70%, 68% ratio,
Okay,
and that percent is locked in, that will be returned to us over 15 years.
okay, and so that 68% is locked in
Yes.
when they approve the project? Yes?
It was locked in when they did the vote, and then it's locked in when we do the vote. It's actually locked
locked
in by
in.
us doing the vote,
Okay.
because the legislative body did it with their fiscal budget for this April to April year.
Okay, so it is very important to lock it in as soon as possible, because in the future, if the state is in fiscal crisis, they could change that matching. Right?
I think that's
So-
probably one of the most important statements that's been said tonight, because the governor, different
Oh, thank
people, it truly is, have talked about possibly changing that.
Correct.
And there's actually a thing in there right now where you have a certain aid ratio, and they give you like an extra 10%, I believe it is. And so that's all in there. So we would really want to capitalize on this in this fiscal year, because we do not know what's going to happen in April with the
Correct.
state.
And also, if the state is in fiscal crisis in the future, they are not going to lower our tax rate,
No,
right?
No.
Because they're giving us less in matching funds, right? We will still be sending money
to the,
to the tax pot of money.
Yep.
And this year, we can get more of that back.
yes.
Okay.
Yep,
Thank you.
very well said. So I'm actually going to probably stop at that point. Took care of all those questions. Can we hold off and keep the funds in the reserve? That's really what we're asking the public to decide. I really think with a lot of different pieces in this project, you can hold off. Bleachers track, they're at the end of their life. The urinals are at the end of their life. There's the safety feature on Rice Road. You have the safety at Marilla with the way the steps are crumbling. Tim, the roof that's leaking on the northern section of the middle school. You have the solar panels that will create efficiency and actually save taxpayer dollars.
But
you have
also,
this-
it's not really fiscally responsible to hold that money, because the expense of the construction is just going to go up,
Correct,
right? The matching funds could go down.
absolutely,
So the longer we wait, the more expensive it gets,
definitely.
which we've already seen in this process of getting quotes for,
Yeah, getting
facilities.
estimates for our different pieces.
Yes.
We've seen the
We've seen it
cost
go up.
escalation over
Yes.
the past, multiple years that we've been talking about this, and the
Yes.
longer you talk, the escalation just keeps increasing the costs.
thank you.
I think that this, just to jump in again, I think this goes back to when we started, we said, we need to create a project that takes care of what we had, looks to the future, and is fiscally responsible. And I know that some people have questioned, if we could pick the pieces we want, I think that the process that, there were times in the board where we have debated, we have disagreed. Us disagreeing and discussing this and having multiple, input from multiple sources is an important part of this process. And I think in the end, I think it was the March meeting when we wanted to put this through as one proposition vote out to the public. We all felt that we were meeting those needs, that this is protecting what we have, this is looking to our future, and it is fiscally responsible. And so I really feel that those are the key things that we really want to communicate at this point. And then, and I love that people are asking questions about it, because it allows us to share that extensive process we've been through. It allows us to just sort of go back and revisit how we got to where we are today. And I do think this is a very exciting time for the district.
I like the way you said that. I mean, to kind of summarize it real quick, it's a nice blend of everything. So there, go back to the next slide. Go to the next slide, please. So this is where we are really. And so you can see, and it breaks out where the money is coming from. And a gentleman wrote in, or I think it was a gentleman if I remember the email right, a pie chart breakdown for the expenditures. So when it came in, and we weren't able to get into PowerPoint, but we will add it for the slide that goes online. So the cost distribution by building, Wales is 4%, Marilla is 10, Alma is 4, middle school is 41, and high school is 41. This is what I read off of it. It's not real great. I understand you can't see it well, which is why we will add it into the presentation. So when it's posted online, if you wish to see that. But again, it was two of the primaries 4, one of them 10, and then the middle and high school both balanced off at 41. Another question I had, are there any donations? And the answer is no, there aren't any donations in this. This is the use of...
Feel free to make some.
Yeah, we were more than willing to accept them, and that might be something you look at when you look at the different scopes. If there's something that you want to donate towards, that would be great. I have a couple other questions. Let's see, reading from here. The project is billed as tax neutral. How does it pay for the next cycle of capital projects? I'll review that. I've already said that, whereas we have these projects based on looking every 5 years, and every year we look to put money in reserve, so we're on this constant process of building up the reserve and then using it for a project. This will be the third one under my tenure, I believe. Let's see, to increase in projects, it just says, for all the other projects and so on, what they're doing. Does the construction of the project include the new athletic fields associated with improvements, increase the likelihood of an increased tax levy in the next capital project? Not on our current long-range plan, it doesn't. And that's with our current long-range plan, and we'll be looking at strategic plan, but right now that is, I don't believe that this board wishes to change that. The percentage of the overall cost of the project is, what percentage is attributed to the athletic field and associated to other improvements? So if I look at that and I say, for all of the work across the road, okay, so that's the track, the bleachers, all of that on the west side of the road is about 10.9 million, which is 56% of the total. However, I think we really need to look at that, and when I say really need to look at it, because remember I said the bleachers are at the end of their useful life. If we don't do that across the road, we're going to be back using local taxpayer dollars on this side of the road to replace them without the state aid. We're going to be redoing the track on this side of the road without the state aid, and we won't have looked to the future. So if you take those pieces out of there, if you were just to do across the road, it would be about it would reduce it about 1.8 million. And then if we were to look at it and we were to say, well, we got to prep for sod in the future, thinking of the future focus, putting the turf in gets down to about 500,000. I actually have 0.4, I'll round up. So in thinking of the future, with this, of doing it across the road, with things we'd have to do anyways, what we're doing to just move forward, to get a return on investment, it's about 2.1% of the project. If you were to say, well, that's a little more, we didn't need to do the infrastructure, I come up with a number of 9.2. So therefore, let's say 10%. So the entire thing, as I said, across the road is a 56%, but of what with the artificial turf, that's about 10% of the project, because the other pieces need to be done anyways. I mean, the last season for our scoreboard, it went out during one of the games. I think that was well documented, and so therefore, excuse me, so therefore we have to, these are things that need to be replaced there at the end of their life. So I'm trying to give you the full picture of it, so if you have additional questions, please call, email me in, and we'll talk about another opportunity for people in a little bit. What happens to these projects if they are voted down? A lot of this work we're going to have to do internally and pay for it with local tax dollars without the state aid. What happens if the funds, and they say, well, why aren't you using the reserves? Because I need a vote to use the reserves, so I can't even touch the reserves because we need a vote to pull the money out of the reserves, and that's why it goes right to the local tax dollar. What happens to the funds if these project is voted down? The money in the reserve would sit there and waiting for your permission to take it out. What would happen to the state aid? We would not have access to it because we need the vote in order to have access to it. I think that's it for this slide. Is there any other thing that, from what I said, popped any questions into anyone's head for the board? Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. And somewhere in here, I'm going to have to add some questions at the end. I didn't plan because I missed them in here because I wrote green for my highlighter, but I'll be sure to get those in. So, with this, did the district mail out the project information as we said we would? Yes. So, every household should have received a flyer. I do know because a couple gentlemen called in, a couple ladies called in too and said, well, we didn't get one at our house. We're still working with the mail. We're constantly doing that. We took those addresses, mailed them out, but you can get this online. It's not only online, it was mailed. We sent it to the post office. Everyone should have received one by now. If you haven't, call us, go online. So they're available. We also made these flyers. These flyers, we're going to be distributing them. We actually have people earning community service hours. They're taking them around to the local businesses, dropping them off there. There's a stack that my business administrator, John, took up to the Alma Town Hall where you can get them out to the libraries and different locations like that. So you can have these. I believe that's also online. Did the district engage of public relations, and what was the cost was another question. And what we did is campus was very, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So, if you could go back to the first couple of slides in the presentation. In the very beginning. Keep going.
It might have been in Sharon's presentation.
Yeah, in Sharon's presentation.
Can you jump to that other one quickly?
So I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, I'm good.
But all these things are outlined, and I think it's important that we reiterate what the board has done. Because
Another one?
we were really thoughtful.
One more. I guess go back to my mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's in it. It's just I've got him to the wrong slide.
Two more slides. No, other way. Thank you. Yeah. One more, yeah.
One more.
Yeah.
Right where I told you to move from, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So these are all the things that you're talking about. All of these things have already been done, right? We have the video out there, which we could play.
We'll play that right at the end.
That'd be great. Information is out on social media. Please share the district information. The flyers are available. They're on the website, right?
Yes.
And there are extra copies available?
Yes.
And people can come and get them and take them to their friends' houses?
Absolutely.
And they can mail them to their
if
friends?
If you email us, we'll even send you a PDF so that you can email it
You
on
can
to people
print
you
them?
want.
There are informational display boards that were professionally designed. Thank you very much. And they are on display at the Alma Town Hall right now. And they will probably be touring
Yep, John's working on getting them toured around.
district. And the district newsletter went out to everyone.
Yes.
Okay, next slide. Thank you. And then coming up, as Doug was saying, we are having the work session tonight, so hopefully this, well, we already said this is going to be recorded.
Yep.
People can listen to it. They can hear about what we've talked about. We're going to continue to do the community outreach. There are Teams meetings. Doug's sending out Connect Ed calls to make sure everybody knows when the vote is and to remind people that it's October 6th. If you can't make it, you can request absentee ballots.
Absolutely.
October 1st, we're going to have another Teams meeting, so you can ask tons of questions. And, like we said, the displays are going to go through. And when we decided as a board, if I remember correctly, to make this one proposition, and we went through how much money were like all of the wish list things, like 30 million
Ooh, do you guys
or
remember?
more, 30 some? Sorry.
Ballpark, it was over 30. What?
I think it was more than that, yeah.
Yeah, it
It
was
was
well
more
over
than-
30 million.
Right. So we went through that and very thoughtfully looked at health and safety first, curriculum and what is best for kids, and energy savings. And, we didn't just say, oh my God, we want a, I don't know, popcorn machine. I don't know. But, and we've listened to the taxpayers, and the board's main responsibility is fiscal. And that meant no tax increase to pay for this stuff. We've already paid the taxes. They're sitting in an account, and we can even bring some of our property taxes back
Yes.
and increase the value of the facilities in the district and the offerings we have for our kids and summer programs and community ed. And I think that it really has been done very thoughtfully, and we do have a plan, and we're getting the word out. And then if you could go to the next slide, please. And this is how we're asking the community to help us. We've listened, and we've heard what you told us, and now we're asking you, because the board cannot tell people how to vote. We have shown our support by spending all of the time and the discussion and, making sure that we could pay for it. And now we need the community to get out. If you want to put up lawn signs, you can do that. If you want to go door to door, probably not the best time to do that. But maybe take some flyers and put them in newspaper boxes. You can't put them in the mailboxes. A community group, there are several people who are interested in getting together and trying to come up with a plan. Share district information on social media. Direct people to the website. Direct people to send Doug emails about questions, and he will answer them. And call your friends on October 6th, or ask them if they have absentee ballots so they can vote. And that's what we can all do together. So we're getting the information out. It's available on the website. Please distribute it. And if you want people to vote a certain way, let them know. Okay, thank you.
No, perfect. And I'm going to finish that last question. It says the public relations, so what was the cost? It's about $9,000. But tying right into what you were saying is I have a bunch of different, were these, Cindy, do you know if these were Facebook or all different types? These were all Facebook, but Alma, New York Facebook that talked about the capital project discussion. Here's an individual person, middle school association. They had it out there. PTO had it out there. Iroquois Foundation, Iroquois Multi-Purpose Athletic Field, and here's one individual that did do a great, really nice thing that wrote out there, do you know someone who doesn't have children who attends Iroquois and therefore may not pay attention to the district news, help spread the word about the vote coming up on October 6th. And I think that's great because there are people out there who don't have children, may have gotten something in the mail, they looked at, they saw it was Iroquois school, they put it aside, forgot about it. It was a couple weeks ago. There's a lot going on right now. People need to be constantly reminded about October 6th. They get the newsletter about information for parents so they don't pay attention. Many people subscribe to the Alma Review, but not everyone. There's 13,000 voters in the district, and with no kids in the district, people don't sign up for emails, alerts from the school, or the robocalls from me. So really reach out to your neighbors. Let them know it's there. We had over 3,000 votes for the budget, and it'd be great if we could have 3,000 votes for this capital project. And again, Michelle mentioned you have the absentee ballots you can call and get during these COVID times, so you can get those. Just let us know. but keep that word going out from all those sources, and thank you to those groups and people. That was the Iroquois Foundation, PTOs. Our new athletic director has met with the coaches and getting all the information out to the boosters so the flyers can get out. The students are taking it out to the different businesses to get their community hours. So what can you do? What can you do to get it out? That would be great. And looking at this, there's a project video which we'll watch when we get done here. The capital project overview, there's the fact sheets available on the website. And if you want, again, I will email them to you. You can have a PDF of it to share with your friends. Email it to your group because maybe they don't want me to have their email to send it to them directly. The newsletter that we sent out, the flyer that we have our meeting tonight, and the one we added just to make sure that people have a chance to ask questions, because I only received about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different people emailed me, it looks like. Just in case there's other people, there's that Teams meeting October 1st. Again, you don't need to have Teams on your computer. You click on the link. Please be aware, and I'll look to technology because maybe it changed, but if you have an Android phone that you're using, you would not be able to ask a question with an Android phone. Everything else works in the chat, and I'll explain how to do that if you join us. But that's at 6 o'clock with a link, and we'll have that on our website. Right on the home page, we'll have a little link to get to that. And the public vote is Tuesday, October 6th. And we're calling it the Intermediate Gymnasium because I think the more everyone that's more tenured here in the district is more familiar with that, but it's the north part of the middle school. And there will be a sign right out front where to walk in. It's a little different door we're going to direct you to, just for safety for COVID, so we minimize exposure and contact with anyone, because we have to do other safety procedures here to keep everything sanitized and safe here at school. Going on to the next slide. Questions? This is the first thing on that next slide, and with that, I do have two questions I didn't answer through all the presentation, and one is there any room in the capital project budget to update the restrooms to maintain a COVID-safe, sanitized environment? This is 2 years out, so really doing them in this project, I'm really praying that we're no longer having COVID 2 years from now when this project would be done. But if there are things we can do just to make bathrooms more safe, more sanitized, we would look to do that if we could. Definitely, we would not be addressing all the bathrooms, though.
We are updating.
We do have a couple that we will be doing. So in those, we will be looking to do that. I just want people to be clear that we're not doing all the bathrooms in the district, but we constantly do work on bathrooms and update them.
Okay, thank you.
Another question is, why is this an all or nothing vote? As district taxpayers, we're your bosses in capital. We should have a better choice of how our tax dollars are spent. A line-by-line vote should be on the ballot. Grants are tax dollars and not free money. And instead of grants, I think they mean the state aid and the reserves, and they're absolutely right. All of that is your tax money, and we want to bring that state tax dollar homes. And why isn't it line by line? Because if someone voted on one line and not another, they would ladder on each other, and you would get a mishmash of things. So really, in looking at it, we actually did spend a board or two meeting looking if there were parts to break out. But so much of this is ADA, safety, instruction, that we put it as one package to be there. So I think that's important to know. But thank you for that question. I think that's also important for everyone to know the logic behind why we're doing.
I want to add to that. The board acts as one unit, always. And we came to a consensus that one proposition was the most fiscally responsible way to put this out to a vote. So that's why it's one proposition.
Perfect.
And I'd like to jump in there too. I completely agree. When the board deliberates something for a few board meetings, and there are differing opinions, that is the part of a process of making a decision as a group. And when that decision was made, that the board was not divided on whether or not this is the right project to put out to people. So I think the way in which was really a very thoughtful, reflective process for all of us going through those discussions, and where we said, yeah, moving forward, this is definitely the way that we all think that we should be doing this and putting it out there to the public. And I think that was, I guess it's just another example of the decision making that we went through and listening to different input in different parts of this process.
You know, too, if I recall correctly, different parts of the project could possibly be subject to different aid rates as
Correct.
well,
Yep.
if they were done, you know, alone. For instance, we had discussed the need for, you know, replacing, you know, the track or major repairs to the track. Well, if we did that as a standalone, the amount of aid that we would receive on that would be minuscule compared to rolling it into the entire project. So, I mean, we're trying to maximize, you know, our taxpayer dollars while at the same time bringing as much of our taxpayer dollars back into our district for not only the benefit of our students, but the benefit of our community as a whole.
Absolutely, there is a requirement for site work when you do that there is a certain dollar amount threshold you have to do internally in the building, so that's a great point. Anything else with anyone? So really quickly, I want to point, I just looked at the time on my computer here, and it says I've been talking probably an hour, probably a little plus, and so I want everyone to know that let me make sure I get the date right. On October 1st at 6 o'clock, when I do that Teams meeting, I will not be repeating this presentation. I will probably spend, well, I'd like to say 10 minutes, but I know myself, I'll probably be more like 15, 20 minutes, just giving a quick overview of different aspects of that, and then I would be answering the questions that are in the chat feature. So just for people who are aware, please don't tell people, tune in and see me speak for an hour again. They might like it, Chuck. You don't have to laugh.
No, they wouldn't.
Oh boy, that will be sad when I go home. But yeah, so it will not be an hour presentation again. It would be just a quick overview, and then I would be answering questions there on October 1st that were posted in the Teams. And if there aren't many questions, it would be a shorter time, and it'll go live about 10 minutes before. So now with the questions here, you know, there's our website. That's where you'll find the information, the newsletter that's special I went out, and there is my email and my business administrator, or your business administrator, John Wolski. And when I get these emails late, you know, for the few I got here, because I'd be answering tonight, a majority of them really, we just said we'd be answering them later. But we will be getting back to you, and we really have a pretty good track record of getting back quite quickly. So unless the board has any other questions, I'm going to beseech the tech department to play the video for everyone. I'm okay right now.
Here at Iroquois, we have a very rich tradition based on very strong communities of Elma, Marilla, and Wales. And we want to preserve that tradition, yet on the same token, we want to make sure that our kids are prepared for the future.
Well, why this capital project now is because it's part of our long-range plan. We do the building condition survey every 5 years, and the reason we have the long-range plans is we're committed to being good stewards, providing for safety, and taking care of the students' instructional process.
The job of teachers and educators in a school district is to prepare students to be successful in the workplace.
STEM, between science, technology, engineering, and math, it's all going to matter in the future.
Right now in the science classrooms, the last update was probably 30 to 40 years ago.
Our STEM and our science projects are really a combination of the physical space that we have and also working with our staff and our educators to see what their needs are and what they see as our future.
So with the capital project, we're really looking to transform science education. We're looking to provide students with lab activities and techniques that will model what they would see in the workplace.
As we continue to listen to the parents and students, one thing we reflected on is a time in the spring and fall where students could have a break from the heat. What room do all the students go to? It's the cafeteria.
The air conditioning in the cafeteria, that is one major plus. That was your only time to really relax. And when it was super hot, it was hard. It was sticky, it was muggy.
In the cafeteria, when it is warm, the humidity gets on the floor and it makes the floor very slippery. So children who are getting up to return trays are slipping on the floor. So the air conditioning will allow for controlled temperatures in the cafeteria as well.
when you look at the scope of the project, one of the things that came to the forefront is our athletic facility. We're at the end of the life for the track. It needs to be replaced. And looking at that as good stewardship, what is the best way to do it and where would be the better location? Do we just do it in kind of where it is, or do we look to the future of where we can put something that could be expanded on for future generations?
This facility will be placed across from the middle school and high school. Included in that facility is going to be a multi-purpose turf field surrounded by an 8-lane track. It will also include new bleachers, a new press box, a new scoreboard, as well as new lighting for the facility.
Most of the teams we play have turf. What you practice on, what you play on is what you're better on. And that brings you to a high level of competition.
Most of the time, if it rains here, we can't play and we have to cancel the game. And it's just upsetting. So I'm very excited to see the turf.
For our physical education staff, they'll be able to get out there on days where the weather would otherwise prevent us from being on a grass surface. After school, we can use it as a home for our clubs and school-sponsored events. I can see both our community members as well as our youth programs accessing the field as well, but also to host contests in field hockey, lacrosse, soccer, football, as well as track and field.
One of the items in the scope of this project immediately addresses safety, where any student can activate an emergency system in case there's any danger within the building.
In a school district, is usually we've set up that they can call lockdown, shelters in place, lockouts, but it's usually called through the main office. The problem is around the country is we've had situations where the main office has been compromised. What we're trying to get is a pull station that the student, the teacher, anybody can go up to and pull it, and the building will be thrown into lockdown.
Blue lights will go off, announcements will go off over the PA. It's all integrated. It'll be integrated with the new door locking system we did in the last project.
So the blue lights would be a huge advantage for primary children. Having that strobe light go off along with the sound would allow them to react quicker to the situation.
Another aspect of safety that we have to look to address is how people enter the building.
The cement on the front steps cracked and huge chunks of that concrete came off, making the steps unable to be used. The other concern with the front steps is that it's really not handicap accessible. So with the new plan in the capital project, the front of Marilla Primary will look like the front of the middle school, and it will make it accessible for everybody and be much safer.
One of the things we're addressing that falls under both stewardship and safety is the parking at Alma Primary. Currently, there's a lot more attendance at the different events we have, so by redoing the parking lot out there and extending it, making it larger, it will help move cars off of Rice Road, which is very dangerous to have people parking and walking down that road. There's new requirements around kitchens. We looked at the walls that separate the kitchen from the eating areas, and with those, they need to be updated to the new fire safety standards. In the middle school, we still have plumbing fixtures from when the building was originally built, and they're at the end of their life and need to be replaced. So therefore, in many of the bathrooms, we're going to have to replumb to make sure we have safe sanitary conditions for those rooms. Under stewardship, it's important to address the building envelope. On the main campus, there are some roofs that need to be replaced, so we're going to be replacing these roofs. In the last project, we replaced other roofs in the middle school and also out at Marilla. So now is a great time to take advantage of putting solar panels on the top of them, because that'll have a great return on your investment, because it'll actually save money for the district. Another unique feature we have here on the main campus is our own sewage treatment plant. So right now, though, some of the concrete walls down there are starting to crumble, and before they get bad, we need to address them. We have proximity to the Buffalo Creek, and good stewardship of that facility is paramount. The district has committed itself and has a track record of making sure when we go forward with projects that there is no tax impact to the taxpayers. And how this is accomplished is we look at the state aid that is going to be coming to the district, and then every year we try to be efficient and save some money that we put into a reserve.
Being able to know that Iroquois is really striving to give their students the best environment learning-wise, athletically, academically, environmentally, it's a sense of pride really within myself to be able to say I came from a school that's always looking to better themselves in all aspects of learning and always striving to be the best.
Maybe on October 1st, I'll just play that rather than have me talk at the beginning, because I think that does a great job of encapsulating everything. So unless there's any other questions, we will move into the next part of our board agenda. All right. I'd like to introduce Matt. Are you the one doing this? Matt Jacobs. He's one of our directors of technology, and shifting gears significantly, but still sticking with safety. It's the internet safety and security and for the technology. So go ahead, Matt.
All right, thank you. All right, so technology protection measures for email. We still use the candidate spam filtering. It's checked by me and the other tech department members. If an email comes in from the outside and gets blocked, we're notified and we can either let it through or deny it. Data loss prevention. We have that in place to protect personal identifiable information through email. So if something like a social security number is sent through, that also gets blocked in our filter, and then I can go in and deny it so it doesn't get to the person. We also have mail flow restrictions in place. So there's a list of words, inappropriate words, that if a student or a staff member sends, it'll get held up in the filter that we can go and deny and forward to the appropriate people for the action. We just moved to iBoss for our filtering system. We get reports on a daily basis still of internet access and searches by the students and staff. Our content filtering groups are separated into student, teacher, and administration levels. And then we have enhanced cybersecurity, which monitors all of our web traffic. For our network access, we have secure logon for faculty, staff, and students. Password complexity requirements right now we have for staff, it's 8 characters, uppercase letter, lowercase letter, symbol. We change them every 3 months, and you currently can't use the past 4 passwords that you've used. For students, right now we don't require them to change their passwords, but they can if they want. And if they do, they have to do a capital letter, a lowercase letter, and have 6 characters along with a number. For wireless access, we use Active Directory machine authentication. So if your computer is domained on our network, it'll join the wireless. For our internet safety policy, we have a written policy to show appropriate online behavior. We use a combination of NetSmarts and Common Sense Media as our K-12 internet safety education program, along with some professional development by Ken Piseni, the Director of Technology. NetSmarts Workshop is an educational program from the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. It provides age-appropriate resources to help teach children how to be safer online and offline. And Common Sense Media provides high-quality digital literacy and citizenship programs to educators and school communities. EdLaw 2D. So this year we are adopting a policy for EdLaw 2D, which are New York State regulations to protect student and staff personal identifiable information when they're using software, such as first names, last names, email addresses, birth dates, home addresses. We put contracts in place with the software vendors to secure the student PII and staff PII. Any software that we do currently purchase through BOCES, the contract is handled by BOCES, so the district is protected under that. And we also do annual EdLaw 2D computer safety training for all staff, which is currently happening right now, to make sure that they know what they're following and what they're doing with the student personal identifiable information.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question. I was at a cybersecurity program last week, I think, and the gentleman talked about the type of I don't know the name for it, like where you would log in and then it sends you a message to your phone.
Yep, 2-factor authentication.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
Okay. is that like a lot more expensive, or?
We actually just upgraded our licensing, I'd say in the past 6 months, and that is a feature that we do have now. It's just not currently in place yet.
Okay. Because he had mentioned, he said that's the only way he would go.
Yes, yeah, it is much more.
Yes, Matt, we can look at that for the future. Maybe in the business office might be a great
Yes.
location for it. I think there's definitely some positions that wouldn't need it because it doesn't have the direct access to the PII. But that's definitely one reason why we're upgrading.
I have a quick question about the education law. During this virtual learning environment, what are we doing to address that law?
Along with the training that the teachers and other staff members are doing right now, I sent out a survey to the staff to get a list of all the software that they're using. And then I'm reaching out to all those software vendors and sending them our contract to hopefully they sign off on it. And then once they sign off on it, it guarantees it protects the data basically. But I'm reaching out to all those vendors now and compiling a list from the staff.
But we don't use any of the software until they sign off, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
You were talking about internet safety programs that.
Yeah.
So are those like pushed out into classrooms? Are they for the teachers? I'm just curious.
They're used in a number of ways. During the summer, the teachers had professional development on them, and they incorporate them into the classroom. We find that it's more, when it's integrated into the classroom, it has a bigger impact. When we run into situations of a student maybe needing some additional guidance on that, that's when Ken and the principals may work with that particular student.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Look forward to seeing you next year.
Back to me?
Back to you, I think.
I think so, and just while our technology folks are there listening to us, just a huge thank you. We know that it is a huge task and monumental job that you've been doing to get our schools reopened, to get kids to have the right equipment, to help the teachers and the staff. So just a thank you to you, and we know every day brings new challenges, but thank you for handling them so well. And that brings us to our consensus agenda. So I would like a motion to approve the consensus agenda, items 5.2 through 5.4.8.11.
So moved, Jane.
Second, Chuck.
All those in favor say aye.
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 I'm sorry, I skipped discussion. Was there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that brings us to our superintendent's report.
All right, another hour, here we go. So, the first thing that...
You got 10 minutes. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, the first one, I'd just like to take a moment here. It's not on the agenda, but Supreme Court Justice Ruth Ginsburg did pass away, so if we could, and flags are at half staff for her, so she really was very impactful in everything she did. So if we could just take a moment of silence for her, that would be a great appreciation. Thank you very much for that moment. Now we're going to talk about reopening school, and we did receive a thank you email that I think encapsulated a lot of things quite well. Dear Doug, administrators, teachers, staff, bus drivers, and all others. So I like the beginning right away because it included everyone, because everyone at Iroquois is a part of reopening. There's not one person we could go without. I just want to thank all of you for working so very hard to put together the plan of the opening of school year. It has not been easy for anyone. We all had to pinch in to pull it off. Administration developed of cohorts, juggling specials, lunchroom protocol, along with recess. Teachers have to plan for videos in class, at home lessons, teaching remotely and or virtually. Cleaners have to work extra hard at sanitizing. Bus drivers have different kids on different days, plus keeping the buses clean. Parents and or grandparents, daycare, YMCA have to make changes to help their children succeed. I am a grandparent like everyone else, need to make adjustments to my schedule. My daughter is working in one of the elementary schools, and it sounds like the 3 different elementary schools are working together to catch kids up while preparing to learn new skills and lessons. My grandson is so excited to be back in the saddle again. He is thrilled to see teachers and friends. Everyone is doing what we need to do to make this style of learning work. I know it has been anything but easy. A lot of stress and concerns, and they don't go away as an attempt to keep the virus from spreading in our community. It is an effort on everyone's part that help us to have a good first week, listening to the concerns for everyone and making adjustments so we can all move forward and put together a quality education plan where children will learn and thrive and always be hungry to learn. Thank you, and may God bless our community, sincerely. So really appreciate that coming in. We did send it out to all of the faculty and staff, and I think, and I really appreciate all the parents and everything, because the drop off, they're just really expressing their great gratitude of being back. But it's like a movie I was watching the other side. You look at all the glitz and glitter on the outside of how smooth things are going. There's a price on the underbelly of that, and the staff, the teachers here are really feeling the burden. It is causing stress and anxiety here, and we do care and worry about them. And I was at a meeting yesterday for one of the buildings where they came in and were talking to the principals, and they were expressing it really articulately. And I think the whole community should really know, and I want the teachers to know that are listening to this, that we graciously appreciate all your efforts, but I've been talking to a lot of them, and we have to find that balance. We don't know how long it's going there. And even though you're doing so much and you want to do so much, when I talk to them and they're talking about their stress and their anxiety, they're also talking about how they want to achieve and do so much. And as parents, we really have to encourage them too to take care of themselves. They're really giving a lot of themselves daily, for the children. I mean, really, we have 200 teachers here and other staff members. It's like their first year, and it's their first year in a high-achieving school. I mean, can you imagine the stress if you walked into work the very first day knowing that you're in the best company and you have to perform that day and you want to perform that day, but you don't even know where your room is? Because you got to remember, in the middle school, the teachers are switching rooms, and so they're not only in the room where their own stuff is that they're used to, they've been accustomed to it, they're going to a different room. So that extra time they may take and everything, and it stresses them because they want to provide instruction right away and reach all the kids. Today something went wrong where the teams went out for some of the teachers for partway through it. It was kind of a trickle-down effect, something to do with Microsoft, and it was fixed. I put out a Connect Ed message on that. But that alone itself is a monumental impact for that day of instruction. And how do you make it up the next day? And I really think that we need to recognize the stress that they're under. I mean, we have our own companies or our own businesses or work that we've been doing, but we've been plugging along with it. And it's adapted slowly as COVID adapted. This started September, for them to come in and do this new system of what we ask them, and they're really reaching, and they're phenomenal. I mean, I can't begin to tell the community how many different people from other communities are saying, wow, how great Iroquois is doing. They're doing spectacular. But I want everyone to be aware, there's this other piece there. There's this toll, and we have to keep working with that and going around. I had technology today, going around and visiting with some of the teachers that expressed a concern yesterday as they go from room to room of how technology is hooking up, going out there. Then technology trying to get everywhere at once to help everyone. There are going to be hiccups, and we have to forgive ourselves. We have to allow those to happen, and you can't just say, oh, well, that's the way it is. We really have to know that it's the heart and soul. I mean, the teachers care so much for the kids, and they care for their craft and what they want to do, and not to be able to do it the way that you trained to do it, and to have this situation forced upon you.
is very difficult. I can't think of a great analogy for it, but I guess it would be, going to California for the first time and all of a sudden being in an earthquake and you're standing right over the fault line where it's opening up and trying to figure out which side you should go to. It's just something we haven't experienced. So I just want to make that point out there, and I thought that email did a good job because it really not only thanked them and gave them huge credit for what they're doing, but also talked about the amount of pressure and stress that they're feeling and being under.
Doug, I'm glad you brought that up because, I too believe that we're doing a great job. And I know one of the big, concerns that I had as a, not only a board member, but, a parent who had children go through school here, we were concerned with the emotional well-being of our kids. But the other side of that is the emotional well-being of our staff, our teachers and our staff. And everyone handles stress and anxiety, differently. And while I think we've done a pretty good job of providing the support we need for our students, I think we've got to be really cognizant of the fact that, we may have to provide support, for our teachers and our staff because, some are having, a hard time. As you said, this is all brand new to everyone. And if there is anything that we can do, as a district to try to mitigate those stress levels, I think it would behoove us to do that because, we know kids. I mean, they're sponges and they're very perceptive. And if we have, teachers and staff in a classroom and their anxiety level is high, that is picked up by our, students. So, it's the whole package, we need to, be cognizant of everybody's, emotional well-being here as we navigate through these waters.
Yeah, and I think like one thing that can be done, and I see the students doing it already, is they're very patient in the classrooms. But I think us as adults, when we see, our child comes home or there's some frustration at home with something logging on or something taking longer, that's okay. The teacher will work it out the next day or the day after. Don't email in right away. And don't expect an email back from the teacher. I mean, they went through this day. They need their personal time at home. Don't, and I've asked teachers, and I want the community to know it too, stop. When you get home, you need a break from it all. There's a certain time where you have to stop and put it aside. And if you're not as prepared for the next day, that's okay. That's a great time to sit and talk with the children. Maybe the instruction's not going, and that is so hard for the teachers because I know when I was a teacher, you want to keep, you want to be prepared, you want to be ready, but you have to give yourself the time. And the other thing I would really like, teachers to hear too, and I know probably are not listening to this because they're probably planning for the next day tomorrow. So if you are and you're listening to me at the same time, stop, stop and just try to take a little break for a little bit. But if you're having trouble, we need to know. We need to come because there are some people that have come to us, but I think there's a lot more. They're trying to have that stiff upper lip that we were taught as kids, and you can't have it at this time. We need to know what's going on. We have the subs in here that we have our daily subs that if you need a break, that we can send someone there for you. We can come in and provide supports. Just about every room I've walked into, they've had a few little questions that I've been able to help them with, but they didn't contact or reach out to anyone if I hadn't walked in. And I also know when I walk in as a superintendent, I might not hear everything that they're feeling. So you need that support group. Get someone to come to us.
Doug, and I would agree, and I do know that we have teachers and staff that haven't reached out, and they may not reach out. I'm wondering if we can be proactive here, rather than waiting for someone to be reaching out to us that, hey, I'm struggling here, I need some help, even if it's, just to sit down and talk with somebody, about what they're experiencing. Perhaps we can be proactive and, provide, at whatever time, after school, before school, whatever, look at, we're going to have, a session, to because like you said, I mean, with the kids, they're saying, well, they don't worry about it, the teacher will take care of that and this and that. Well, we got the teachers too, and if the teachers aren't, if they don't have the right mindset, and we talked about a lot, mindsets an awful lot, going back last year. If they don't have the right mindset, again, how can we expect our, students to have the right mindset as well?
And I really think that over the rest, I'll say the rest of this week, but really, when I say the next couple weeks, I think that has to be a shift because we took care of the safety of coming in, and we have to start looking because now they've had a chance to kind of experience it, and it's starting to build with them. We do have the EAP program that we need to make sure they're aware of, but I think one of the greatest things is what you said is walking around, but walking in and talking to them when they don't have students, when they have a moment, and really helping. I know Dr. Dudek's been walking around, talking to people. I know the different principals have been. I know the union's been walking around talking and helping the people and bringing different things to us, so we can help with that. But I think there really needs to be something. I mean, we have a Superintendent's Day on the 25th, and that's a half day, and I really think just giving them the time to do what they need to do, and that's not much. I got to tell you, just a half day here, that's really not doing that much for them, and that's where you have to be aware. And they do have stuff going on personally that we have to be aware of too.
So, I'm curious, are we, we kind of met with and heard concerns before we came back. Are we going to do like a roundtable, maybe meet with the different buildings or the union and hear their concerns now? Because I think that, it's okay to hear like one person at a time, but it sounds like it's more of a systemic, like just to reflect on, what we put in place. We thought it was the best thing. Is it? Like you're saying, the Superintendent Day. I mean, even kids are, they're in school Monday, Tuesday, and then they're home Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but they're still learning that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it's stressful for them to be there 5 days. And I know that the preps are outrageous right now, taking your online curriculum and what you're used to doing in class, and doing it in class, but then also making it accessible virtually and hybrid is almost tripling their work.
Yeah, it definitely changes the amount, and that's why.
And it changes it for the kids too. Like they're receiving it in several different ways, and the teachers are delivering it several different ways. I know that there are other districts who are taking that Wednesday to clean the buildings really a lot, to give teachers planning time, to give teachers also office hours so that the kids who are 100% remote have dedicated time with them, and they can take care of some technical issues. I'm just thinking, I'm thinking out loud, and it's just something to consider with feedback and with reflection and just
right. And that's too, what I was saying about being proactive. And instead of waiting, for someone to be at their very wit's end before they, seek, any help. I mean, what the answer is, I don't know. What form it would take, I don't know. But we have Catherine Pearson on staff, and she's a behavioral, specialist. I mean, is she a resource that we could use to say, we have a Superintendent's Day coming up. What kind of workshop can we put together, to help deal, with some of the anxiety and the stress that our teachers and staff are currently experiencing. So, that's what I mean about taking that proactive, approach. And again, everybody reacts differently. You know, some people have a very easy time of letting things just roll off their back and they roll with the punches and, you know, even though things are different. Other people, you know, have a harder time with that. And, you know, I think it would behoove us, our faculty, our staff, and our students to take some kind of a proactive approach here.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of the PLCs, the building leadership teams, the departments, and with them meeting as groups all the time is very helpful, because in the meeting I was at, I think it was yesterday, I lose track of time now, they were able to articulate what their concerns were, and then they also articulate possible solutions to them, which is why I like, you know, like just a simple one with technology, because they're in here walking around and looking at where the computers are, because they're very stressed of, I heard of where they're sitting, how they're facing with the students. It sounds like very small to you, but that's a big thing. And then they're worried about the planning and trying to get back to people. And then that forgiveness, you know, you mentioned the Wednesdays. What do you do on a Wednesday? Maybe that's a day where, you know, the kids have in and they just have work to do and make up. So changing the expectation of what they're doing on that, you know, could you do it different at the different grade levels possibly? And just even looking at what they want to accomplish, how they're accomplishing that. Because I think that's one of the biggest things. I talked to one teacher who, I'll talk to one teacher because she'll probably know who I am talking about her. But with it, when I looked at her and she said, well, I have to get all this done because of the state assessments, and I want the board to hear this. I told her, I don't care about the state assessments. I don't care one iota whether they have them or not. I said, I guarantee you we'll do better than last year. And she kind of looked at me and I said, well, we didn't take them last year. Everyone got a 0. And she smiled and giggled. And she goes, well, what about the year before that? I go, I don't really care. We're more important about your well-being. And if all you can do is get, you know, and I told the staff, you know, if you get 75% of your material done, you know, and you know, it's good that the whole public's here. That's okay. Take your time, connect, find the space. You know, if it's a day that you just can't get prepared for, there are so many different instructional videos out there. Just have the kids watch the instructional video, and if you do that for the A group, you know, tell the B group, say, hey, we're going to watch this today. That's okay. And then we're going to watch it again on the B group day. So there's 2 days built right in there where the students could be watching something. The group at home gets a break from it. They could catch up, answer a few questions, and get some work done. So those are different ideas out there. I talked with another teacher in the high school about that, and we were discussing, you know, how much of the curriculum to get through, and then what do they remember, and, you know, by the time they get to college, and if we can teach them the foundation, just so they understand the processes, all the little other pieces, you know, just that core content, we got to push that aside. I was going to talk to them about this Friday, but what's that? Okay, I'll be right with you guys. Let me give you my last analogy, then it's all yours. So what I was going to give them is the analogy of we are putting a square peg in a round hole. We're doing that. And when you do that, there are gaps around it. And we have to accept those gaps will be there. And, you know, it's not the best, but it's the best we can do. We have to be patient. So Jane, thank you. Jane, I gained something. Jane?
I said it in our district planning in July, and I'll say it again. COVID is a different kind of education, and we can't expect the teachers to rise to the same levels. And even so, I know that because of the staff that we have and the teachers that we have, and the level of their dedication, that even if they only do half of what they normally do, we will still be doing better than most districts in Western New York and around the country. I absolutely echo your sentiment that these teachers need to give themselves a break. We can't say that enough. You can try some new things. You can try some different ways of communicating and different ways of trying to get your lessons across. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We'll figure something out. You know, they can't be constantly in fear that they're not doing a good enough job, because I can already tell that they are. Just by the things I'm hearing from community members. I have a niece who is going to school in kindergarten, her first year, and she's only been 3 days, and she's already, calling, saying, I love school, it's my favorite thing. You reach that child. And there are lots of children out there that are feeling that way. Sometimes it's not about the number that goes into the grade book. Sometimes it's about the connection that you're making with your students, and that's really what's important. The learning will come. The learning will happen. Right now, just, do your best and know that that's enough.
And your best is different than your best last year. That's the part that breaks my heart, because they know what their best was and they want to get there. And it just breaks my heart talking to some of them. And I'm like, and then after I talk to them, I think they're, either really nice to me or they really do feel a little better. But then I worry, where are they going to be the next day? And that's why that constant going around and, and the groups help. But I think it's going to be a daily thing of going around and constantly sitting with people and saying, it's okay.
Which brings me to my next point, and that is that we need to say the same thing to our administrators, and I hope the rest of the board echoes my sentiment that, Doug, you need to take your own advice.
Yeah, but not till the teachers are okay.
I could chime in really quick to the discussion. I couldn't agree more with the discussion that we're having right now, and I echo all of the comments that have been made by my colleagues here on the board. I couldn't agree more, Chuck, that I think we need to take a proactive approach in the social emotional need of our teachers. We have an obligation right now as a district to address this. I've heard from numerous teachers over the past 2 weeks, and this is a major issue that needs to be addressed. So hopefully our administrative team is looking at ways to be more proactive in addressing those social emotional needs of our teachers and staff. Secondly, I think another common question and theme that I've been hearing from faculty members is, just because we have a plan now doesn't mean that we can't take in feedback and adapt to that feedback, right? Like, sometimes things sound great on paper, but then you start putting it into action, and we need to adapt to what's being put in action. And so I hope that teachers aren't just being listened to, but are actually being heard and actions being taken on changes that they're asking for and solutions that they're bringing to the table. Because we heard it in our roundtable meeting that we had with teachers. They weren't just coming with issues, they were coming with solutions. And so hopefully those solutions are actually being implemented moving forward. But I could not stress that social emotional piece of our staff more during this time.
If I could
And
just...
also, really quick, Sharon, to finish one more thought that popped in my head, and to elaborate on what Jane was saying, we have an obligation as a community, as parents. I've seen some of the emails and communications that our teachers have received from members of our community, and it's just uncalled for. These teachers right now are heroes during this time, educating our future. They're doing the best that they can. I don't know a teacher in our district that does not have kids at the forefront of their mind, our students' education at the forefront of their mind. And it's important that as parents and as members of the community, we understand that we need to have some patience too, that this is not a normal year, right? That our teachers have not done this before in this format, that we need to show that patience, show that caring, show that support from home as well, and understand that when you do hit send on that email, it's going to another human being, and they have thoughts and feelings, and know that they're trying their best and doing what they can for your child as well during this time. So I think it's important that that was also stated tonight.
Yeah, I think that was That was so greatly said, and that's why I think that this forum and that this is being recorded is so great. And for the teachers to know the board is supporting and the community, really, when you look at parents, what do you want to model for your child? Here's your opportunity to really model caring for one another. Mary Jo?
I just want to,
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
can I jump in? I can't see the people that are there, so I didn't mean to interrupt somebody if they were starting, so tell me if they, it is, again, everybody are saying all of these things, and sometimes we say that the words, we're saying it and we hope people hear it, I don't often talk about seeing this in different ways. I'm teaching 2 remote sections in another school district. And when you do say those things, it is important for teachers to hear. It is recognized to hear it from, school board level, community level, the parent level. I think it's really valuable to hear. So I thank you to the Iroquois teachers. I think what is hard is you are a planner, you are a preparer, you are ready for every day, and something is different every day. And that's kind of been, everybody's experience through COVID. So, giving yourself that forgiveness is a really important message. But also then from that perspective, we find ourselves, I find myself when we have these meetings, we start to brainstorm solutions. I think that it is natural for communities, parents, administrators, the board, for us all to start to solve the problem. And I think the most valuable words we can say to our faculty and staff right now is, how is it going? What do you need? Like, our job is not to push down solutions. Our job is to listen and to respond to that. And I think that is always something that we have strived to do a good job of in Iroquois. I just think that is more critical than ever. And those opportunities for our faculty and staff to talk to each other. Because as much as technology is an odd thing, it unites us. We're apart. We're united here, but it does isolate us in some way. So when teachers are connecting with the students remotely and in person, they are not out and connecting and hanging out in faculty rooms and brainstorming solutions always with other faculty. And so to provide those formats to say, what is a problem? And let's brainstorm together. What's working for you? What's working for you? And that naturally happens in other times, but to provide those opportunities, I think, is so important now. So it's great to hear everybody's words. And again, I echo everybody that we are behind everybody in our district and know that everybody is doing their best. But I just think that our job is also is just to listen.
And just so the board knows, in listening, one of the things I heard at the middle school, one of the greatest, I shouldn't say the greatest things, they're all great things, it's like triage every day for everything, is in the middle school where we have the cohorts stay in the room and the teachers are moving because you're always switching, not having all your materials. I actually did call the Department of Health and talk to them about which would be the safest model. They're still saying having the students remain in one classroom is the safest. But in looking at the numbers of the high school, that is one thing I'm really listening to the teachers about, that, I'm not doing a knee-jerk reaction. I want to wait. I need some more data, some more, called scientific information, to see the safety of how things are going at schools, because that could be one of the first things of our plan that we wrote down on paper that I would look to switch, because that comfort of knowing where your things in, being logged in, staying logged in, just finding what room, and then what room do I go to, what room do I plan in. I hear them ramp up when they say that, and you can hear me ramp up saying it too, because I understand that frustration. So that's one thing, just so the board knows, that I'm looking at. I really want to get through September to get a good set of numbers and to see what's happening in other districts. But that is one thing I heard, and so you might get in a Friday memo that I'm looking at that. So if you have any concerns about it now or later, let me know. But that's how I'm looking to monitor and adjust to that.
Can I just add?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Mary Jo's been waiting so patiently.
Well, as Doug mentioned, we've been talking to a lot of people since school opened. I'm really thankful that everyone on the board recognizes that it is a true team effort, and the teachers are doing a yeoman's job and recognizing that some of them have 25 years in, but they're first-year teachers again. But I want to also recognize the administrators who have worked tirelessly in their buildings, who are often the first lines of the go-to people to help the teachers at a moment's notice. And the transportation department, I had, my sister-in-law works in another district, and she called me specifically because she said, the care that your transportation people give to your students is amazing. The technology, the nurses who we're in constant communication with, and the food service. John, I don't know, he doesn't have a budget anymore because he just says yes. So I think it's really, really important that, as you said, we recognize that everyone has been putting in a huge effort, and that forgiveness is important, patience is important, and hopefulness, because I think we're doing really great, and the best days, we're seeing the kids and the teachers unite in person. Their eyes sparkled, and the teachers were super excited to see their kids. So I just wanted to point that out, so thank you.
And I think with that sparkle in the eye, we have to remember, we don't, people ask me, well, how long before it changes? I'm like, I don't know, it depends when the state changes the rules. We don't know how long we're in this. We can't come in with this giving 200% for the first week and burning ourselves out. We have to give that period where this is something that can be sustainable, and everyone needs to understand and know that. And and talking to the community too about it, they have to recognize that there is a limit to everything.
Iroquois has such a high standard, right? So I appreciate people saying we have to dial it back, but people won't.
That's my problem right now.
And we have to acknowledge that.
Yep.
Because we know that you guys want to do the absolute best. The administrators, the teachers, the nurses, everybody is doing their absolute, they're going above and beyond every single day. And so somehow, as the leaders in the buildings, can we create a way to take the pressure off a little bit? And, if it's maybe like slow down the pacing, or do something with grading, or, you guys are the experts on that.
Well,
I'm just,
honestly,
and I know you're thinking about all this stuff.
Yeah.
I just want it to be clear that all of those things, I hope, are on the table. And we're really looking at, because that stress trickles down, and then the kids are stressed, and then the parents are stressed, and then the social media starts happening, and it's a big, explosion of.
I think what the board is saying here now, because how leadership holds itself, how it talks, how it carries in the message it sends, and I think a very clear message to them is being sent to everyone tonight. And for those, and obviously they're not going to be listening, but I guarantee you that there's a few listening that right now are texting their friends of saying, wow, this is what the board just said. So I really got to thank the board for supporting that message, because there was two teachers that I talked to Friday, and I said, please, this weekend don't do anything. Just try not to do anything. They talk about being prepared, and they're type A personalities, and they got to be prepared. They got to have their week ready. And I said, please, 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 please don't. And I knew someone who knew someone who knew someone, and I found out, they said they wouldn't do any work, but I found out they did a lot of work. and I, for if you're listening, I was just made my heart understand why you want to do it, but I was disappointed. Please, you got to take that space. So I'm not trying to send a mixed message. It just, please listen to what the board was saying tonight, where we're going to support you. The state assessments, they're whatever. Don't worry about them. Worry about your health, the children's health, and then think about education.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, and
I wanted to make one point too, and I really appreciate all the communication that you put out there, Doug, and the principals. It has made a huge difference knowing that we're getting almost instant communication as to what's going on, and that is really awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, I think, you know, Michelle hit on it, that we are so blessed here at Iroquois because our, you know, from the administrators, you know, all the way down to, you know, volunteer coaches, you know, everybody holds themselves to such a high standard. And I just want to make sure that we're able to provide the support that is needed, you know, for our faculty and staff. And because they all hold themselves to such a high standard, I have to believe that that's the reason a lot of them aren't reaching out. I mean, it would be much easier, I think, as a group. But, you know, it's hard for people to admit a lot of times that, hey, you know, I'm really having a hard time. And that's why I had said, if there's something that we can do proactively, you know, provide, you know, whatever, you know, workshops, you know, BS sessions, whatever it might be. I don't know what, you know, what works or what would be appropriate, you know, but at least have that, you know, so that we can offer that level of support.
Yeah, and everyone's different. You know, a couple people might work great if they get in a room once a day and can let the steam off, and other people really need to sit down and talk one-on-one, and someone else might just need what you're hearing today to know they can set their standards different. And that's where we really got to reach out and talk to people.
I've been trying to come up with an analogy when you said it was.
Yeah, just.
So all I can think of is, you know, like you learn to drive on a standard or an automatic car, right? And you're driving for 20 years, and then somebody throws you into a stick shift and says you need to drive on the Daytona 500, and you better win.
Yeah, you better win. That's
right,
yeah.
and you better win, and you get no notice.
Yep, that's
so
exactly
floor
it.
But
good luck getting
sometimes
started.
the car breaks down, and it's not your fault.
Yeah. Yeah, like today,
Right.
the team stopped. It's not your fault, and
Yeah.
that, honestly, that was probably should have thought about, but it's one thing I didn't think about. So I talked to Tech. I said, so what are we going to get so we can get out to parents so they're not at home stressing out, and we can get out to teachers right away? And they've come up with a way with Connect Ed, and we're going to get that set up in the next day or two because everyone gets that message. And students might not get it too, but hopefully their parents will text them just thinking about it. So there might be a glitch because we wouldn't be able to email them, but we'll work on that one too. All right, but thank you to the board for that, for the support and that, and I'm going to include this in my Friday message, what you said tonight. What's that?
It also goes to you guys, the support.
Well, it's going to be tough to lead by example there. So return to school staff, they were very thankful for the first 4 superintendent's days. They're still working on this uphill journey. Been going around talked about that. This is new, different. It's not ideal, and teachers want to do more than this environment allows, and we talked about that. Talked about this. Students. A lot of students I talked to, they're really glad to be back. Mary Jo mentioned the sparkle in their eye and their excitement, and it's great to see them. You know, the students are really exceeding my expectations on anything with safety. I mean, there's a few people we've had to remind here and there, but that's going to happen. I mean, today I walked out of my office and I had to, well, Cindy probably said, turn around, get your mask. And okay, and I had to do it. So we get that, but they are really trying, and I got doing great. And just a little reminder, and they do that. Broadband, Tech is doing a great job with Plan B. So we're running about 40% right now, but remember that 40% we're running with our broadband is with hotspot backups. So we don't have everyone on our broadband. We still need to get there. And BOCES has elevated to involving their legal counsel and working towards a resolution. I heard we're on a list, but we don't have any dates yet. So anything else with that, Matt? Any other updates today? So that's really it. So thank you, BOCES, for all your hard work on this. And working towards a resolution. Overall, the startup is going well, but it is really requiring a constant focus. It's a triage all the time, and as our discussion, we talked about that. New York State Department of Health. Well, let's talk about, okay, so I'm hearing that the New York State Department of Health is coming out with new guidance, but it's being stalled in discussion within the governor's office. However, our local, so big difference there, state, local Erie County Department of Health has stepped in, and they've been a pleasure to work with. I called them today, I had a question. Every time I've called them, someone has picked up the phone. We have a school liaison for the schools, a great person to talk to. Their guidance is consistently changing. Yes, that frustrates me. However, they're doing it based on the new scientific information to increase safety. So it's good they're doing it, and we're really getting into a good working relationship with them. So anyone that's hearing me that's working with our local Department of Health, thank you so much for all that you're doing. And they have, you know, I don't want to say they have joy in their voice when I call them, but it's a pleasant conversation. It's not like I'm taxing them and they give us the time we need. Enrollment. So in enrollment and looking at it, just want to point out to everyone, total virtual, we have 9.2%, which is 192 students. That's district-wide. Total elementary is 61. Total middle is 58 students, and high school is 73 students, which is about 1%. And we did have the parent-taught ones, which would be like the homeschool, 48 students went on, did that. So it increased our numbers there by about 1/3. We were about at a 90 before. Athletics. This goes over here. Athletics. First, I'd like to thank Tim Slade, the Executive Director of Section 6, for over a decade of service. He does live here in our district, and I wish him great luck in our retirement. And once you retire, we would love to have you come here and sub. So hopefully you're listening. No, but really thank you. He's done a great job, and it's been tough right now with COVID. So some sports are starting: cross-country, soccer, field hockey, golf, swimming, and tennis. With that, so I had our athletic director, Carrie Vetter, and here are some bullets for the Board of Ed meeting about the safety, and I think she covered most of everything that's important. So masks. Athletes will wear masks at all times unless it is not tolerated due to physical activity. And right there, this not due to physical activity, this is the part I think a lot of superintendents are a little frustrated with, because who determines that? And you know, right now it's sitting with the students the way the state put it out. And so therefore we are saying, you know, the athletes don't have to wear a mask at game time or physical activity. However, they can wear a mask if they choose. And we are, you know, really recommending it. You should have a mask. I mean, I think of when I played soccer and I'm running there shoulder to shoulder looking at the ball, we're breathing in the same spot. But, you know, so parents, please know that, you know, talk to your child about it. They can wear a mask. I do understand it's hot, it's sweaty, it's hard to breathe. But that's where it is right now. It's not like in the classroom. So I wanted the board to be aware of that. Mask breaks are allowed 6 feet apart. Coaches and all other essential personnel will wear masks at all times. All spectators will wear mask coverings when they're in common areas and situations where 6 feet of distancing is not able to maintain. So we'll get to spectators in a second. Screening, coaches and athletes will do the daily screening. Great, we're already doing that for everyone. Social distancing, that's the 6 feet. You know, when you're engaging in physical activities, the 12 feet, and you heard about my concern with the mask. Disinfecting, the coaches are all equipped with sanitizers for disinfecting the equipment at the end of every practice, and sanitizers that they need. Locker room, the use is limited and is monitored by the coaches. I'll pick on swimming. You really can't show up to school dressed to swim. So therefore that, you can't. I guess you could, but I think we have some dress code violations possibly. So with that, that's the locker room. Spectators, so please everyone listen, is indoor. No spectators are allowed. This was voted on by all ECIC coaches, and hopefully they voted that way because I wanted it that way. Outdoor, there's 2 per athlete, and these are credentials. So what will happen is each athlete will have like 2, I'll call them press tags, but they'll have 2 tags that they could give. So if they want boyfriend or girlfriend to show up with their parent, their mother, they could show up that way. If they would rather give them to a grandpa and grandma, they could show up that way, so every athlete would have that for the sports, and then when they come, so when you come to watch an outside sport, separate out, and we're going to have chaperones there to help with that, because there might be some difficulty, so we're going to have some chaperones there. Supervision, we're going to, I just said this, increase supervision to help monitor expectations. Restrooms are available during the contest across the street, and they're going to be disinfected daily per the DOH guidelines. So that was athletics. Code of conduct, there was that Appendix A in this. This is where one of the responses, teachers were concerned about this, and it really addresses the video aspect of it. So for any student or family that's listening, you need the permission. You can't just go videotaping. You need to talk to the teacher to get the permission. Is there anything missing in this, Mary Jo?
The other thing that it includes is it prohibits posting any audio or visual.
Yep. So if we see that, we will be talking to you, and so please don't do that. Don't put yourself in that spot. Be proactive, be smart. Department of Health, already talked about that. State fund, I already talked about this. The state came out, big announcements a few days ago that the state will be providing 100% of the state aid funding for the September payment, so that's great news. So that was great to hear. Erie County CARES Act. Now, before John talks about this, I don't even know if he knows about this one. So there's a LiveWell Erie CARES Act Child Care Funding Powers Virtual Learning Support Center Emergency Child Care. Have you heard about that one, John? Okay, so what it is Erie County Executive announced county plans to invest in the U.S. CARES Act funding they have to support schools, child care providers, caregivers countywide. So this is the child care provider. So this would be like daycares. About $14 million in the grant funding will be used to assist the 28 local school districts to create virtual learning support centers, these VLSCs. Place where children can be supervised in a safe and healthy environment while engaged in virtual learning. So I know like child care is concerned and that would have it. There's very limited information right now about that, and there are some qualifications to be in there. The additional funding for families that are up to 85% of the New York State median income. And with part of Erie 2's applied on behalf of the 9 school districts, East Aurora, Eden, Holland, go on to Iroquois, Lakeshore, North Collins, Orchard Park, and Springville. So it's great. I don't mind mentioning the names and something great. And also Erie 1 applied for the other Erie County school districts. So let's see, primarily be between the ages of 5 and 12. So that's the group of parents, and again, caring for 85% of the local medium. So I know this is part of the curriculum at Erie 2, so Mary Jo will probably be working with John on this, and I'm going to set this aside so I can give it to John, so he has another task to perform. But why don't you talk about the CARES Act that you do know about, John?
So New York State had CARES Act funding allocated to different counties. Erie County was nice enough to reallocate some of that money to school districts. The basis of that allocation was an amount per student in your district, which was a nice fair way to kind of evenly distribute the money to all the districts in Erie County. Our part of that is $243,200. Later in the meeting, we will do a budget amendment to increase our budget by that amount, because that truly is new money. It's not replacing state aid or anything like that. This is new money added to our budget to directly address COVID-related expenses. Supplies, materials, masks, equipment that we bought. Plus, we're going to allocate some of that money towards our substitute teachers, because we are seeing an increase in that directly related to COVID. We're seeing a little more demand for subs and additional staffing. So that's the uses of this money. I will have to track that and make sure that I have all those expenses kind of allocated, so that if they do come back and ask, what did you spend this money on, I can show them what we used it for, and we are doing that.
All right, and let's see. We'll stick right with you, the internal audit report.
The audit committee met last week. This is we call it the internal audit, which is not the year-end financial big audit. This is an audit that focuses on process and procedures that we use internally financially. The audit committee
meets and decides on which areas the auditors will dig deeper on. This year we chose 3 different areas: cash receipts, primarily athletic events, payroll we picked because it's a large expense area for us, and the third item was cash disbursements. The process is they go into those areas, they take samples, they look at the procedures that are used, they kind of double check that we're doing the things that we say we're going to do. For the cash receipts and athletics, they did have some recommendations on how to, for ticket sales and making sure that we're taking the first ticket, we're keeping the last ticket that's sold and everything in between. We then have a count of how many tickets were sold, and we make sure that the cash matches how many tickets were dispensed. So that's a good recommendation, very easy to implement, and we'll do that. On the payroll area, again, sampling, they didn't find a lot of issues or problems that, in our process. They did recommend that we do send salary notices out to teachers and all staff. We weren't doing it for administrators. We did have procedures in place to double check and make sure administrators pay match the contract amounts. But we will send out, starting this year, administrator salary notices, very easily to implement, so we will do that immediately. And the last area was cash disbursements. They did sampling and realized that there was 5 instances where purchase orders were not placed for expenses that were incurred. And we found that this was in the special education area when they showed us where they found that. There are instances where contractual agreements and things happen, especially with, say, legal expenses. We involve a lawyer. We don't know what that expense is going to be, so we don't generate a purchase order for that. But once we do find out how much it is, then we pay the bill and put the purchase order in at that point. So there are some places where you can't avoid those situations, but we'll try to minimize that as best as possible. And then they have a summary at the end of the report where they kind of list prior findings. Some of them they leave on there because they retest, and if we say we did something or made an improvement, they leave it on the list, and then they'll test those areas next time around and make sure that we're doing the things we said we were going to do. So some of those things do come off, but that's why there's a kind of a list of things at the end there that they continue to look at. I guess we'll say it that way. Any questions?
No, I was just gonna, did you say that they're gonna put dates on those, the findings, the previous findings? Like, so that the...
Yeah, right. Good point. We talked about that, and so that they know when to start removing these things off the list. If by putting a date on there from now on, they'll be able to see that this was on the list for 2 years. They found no more issues, so they'll remove those items based on the date. Yes, thank you.
And thank you to you and Michelle for being on that audit committee and the other members. So that's great that you come in and check everything like that. I'm a primary dollar general grant, and so what we received, and we did have someone in here to help write grants, $3,100. So that was great, and they can buy some, I believe it's books, that they'll be able to get with this, and I know they always look to increase their libraries. 2 other quick I shouldn't say late-breaking things, but information just came to me. The Kissing Bridge Ski Club bus, that's run through community ed, and with COVID and the number of capacity on the buses, it really makes it into a negative aspect. So they're currently not planning on running that because of the environment in which we're in. KB did put out some coupons and things that people could have that we're sending out that would help for a reduced rate. And the other, I thought the board would like this. Over the summer, we're still continuing the federal and state free breakfast and lunch. I know that the administrators are in there and the different teachers and making sure the students know this with the lunches, walking around, telling them that, this is it, you can have this. And so sales were a little slow the first week, but they've picked up significantly. And over the summer, fun fact, we served 138,000 meals since March 18th. Up to the end of August. So thank you for all your support in that. And that's all I have. So back to you, Sharon. I guess that was another hour. I'm not so good. It's hour and 10 minutes twice. I guess I didn't lie. I was kind of joking, but told the truth again.
The agenda committee's meeting
that brings us to new business. Item 7.1. Resolved that the audit committee has met with the internal auditors, Lumsden and McCormick, read and reviewed the contents of the 2019-2020 audit report and all supplemental materials, and recommends per memo that the 2019-2020 audit report be approved by the Iroquois Central School District Board of Education.
So moved, Chuck.
Or second?
Second, Weeds.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Against? And if
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, Louise.
okay, and if you, just somebody let me know, I can't see the people that are there in person, just somebody wave their hand and let me know if somebody does want to have discussion.
All good.
Okay.
I think, hang on, if we're following the procedure properly, we would have to do a roll call if Sharon can't see us.
Oh. If Sharon can't see,
Should we move? We could move.
yeah, why don't you, here, Chuck and I can, you can see everyone online, but if I do this, can you see Michelle and Dave?
I can if you tilt it down just a little bit.
Can you see me in the camera?
No, you have to move.
I can see you now. I can see them both now. Great.
Awesome.
Great. All right, item 7.2. The superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the bus bond from J.P. Morgan Chase Bank at the rate of 1.0.7%.
So moved, Chuck.
Second, Dave.
Discussion? Wave your hands around. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye, Louise.
And the motion passes. 7.3, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education approves the following resolution. Resolved, list of voting inspectors, chief inspector, clerk of the meeting, acting clerk of the meeting, and the permanent chairperson be approved for the capital project vote to be held on October 6, 2020. Be it further resolved that the clerk of the meeting is hereby delegated the authority to appoint additional inspectors as necessary, and be it further resolved that the clerk of the meeting, or in her absence, the acting clerk of the meeting, shall have the authority to inspect the voting machines prior to and immediately after the voting for the purposes of reporting the same to the public and preparing the minutes of the annual district meeting.
So moved, Louise.
Discussion? Second, Jane, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Item 7.4, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education declare the following items obsolete and disposed of according to district policy.
So moved. Michelle?
Second, Louise.
Discussion?
Second, Louise.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The superintendent recommends the Board of Education award the bid award to KNE Fabricating Company Incorporated as the lowest responsible bidder to repair the boiler at Wales Primary at the cost of $53,672 base bid.
So moved, Chuck.
Second, Dave.
Louise.
Discussion?
How
All
many-
those in favor say...
Yeah, I do. Sharon,
Go ahead.
hang on, I do.
Yep.
How many bids did we receive? Just the one? Okay. Right. Are they the same company that we had repair the boilers? Where is it? Marilla? Wasn't it? Wales. Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item 7.6, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education accept the donation of $224 from BSN Sports for the Chuck Funky Athletic Fund.
So moved, Gunner.
Second, Dave.
Discussion?
Thank you.
Yes,
And
thank
all
you.
those- Yep, I was going to say thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Item 7.7, the superintendent recommends the approval of the non-public school transportation late request for the 2020-2021 school year for 7 additional students.
So moved, Louise.
Second, Chuck.
Discussion?
Same reasons last month.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye, Louise.
Aye. Opposed? Item 7.8, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education accept $243,200 from the County of Erie for the CARES Act School District Distribution of Funds Agreement. The payment of this claim will result with an increase to the revenue budget by $243,200 and an increase in appropriations to the general fund.
So moved, Chuck.
Louise.
Second, Dave.
Discussion.
I think it's awesome. That's my discussion. I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
Good discussion.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Anybody opposed? And that brings us to board discussion. On our agenda for board discussion today, we do have our strategic plan. I think that this is really, I guess, more of a status of where we're at with our strategic plan, and if anybody wants to chime in. At this point, the board has completed their training and working with the strategic planning company, and we're very eager to be moving forward with that. That was happening during COVID time when we were quarantined. We were meeting with them. A lot of the attention of the district, make sure I say this right, but a lot of the attention of the district has really had to be and should be on reopening and making sure that we can get our students and our staff back into our school as safely as possible and being responsive and listening to our community and questions. So we have not moved forward with this, but we are ready to be moving forward now. And so I think that people should be looking for letters from the school district inviting people to volunteer to participate on our strategic planning team, so that we can begin those really important discussions that will sort of lay the foundation for where we see Iroquois moving in our future. Don't know if anybody else wanted to chime in. I know, Michelle, you were in those conversations.
Yeah, I think when we were talking about the strategic plan, we talked about forming some committees with people from the community. One committee, maybe, 12 to 15, 16 people. And so we were talking about putting a form maybe on the website so people can submit their interest in participating. It would be kind of a
Like
year.
an application with interest on it?
Yeah, and skills that you bring to the group. We'll have try and have a wide range, and then we'll also be talking about other committees that we'll be having, such as.
Well, we talked about the project today. Future projects would be one.
Yeah.
Buildings and grounds.
Right.
And those projects will come from surveys and from work that the initial strategic planning committee does also.
Yes. Thank you.
So I guess this was just a call to an update to let everybody know that this is still something that we are eager to move forward with, and also to keep your eye open for that. I know that that's the process we went through many years ago when was hired. It was a call to get people who are interested in participating on those committees, and I think that system worked out nicely.
Yeah.
Get a wide range of people from different areas of the community. If any other board members have any comment on strategic planning?
Do we know when, do we have a goal of when we would like people's submissions? Are we going to reach out to people? When's that going to happen? And maybe when can we target? We're going to have to meet virtually for a little while.
Yeah, I actually just wrote, I actually just wrote down, I think it'd be great if we could almost have that, I don't want to call it an application, but that interest form even at the vote, so people showing up could pick one up.
That's
I
a great
think
idea.
That would
very
be a
good
great
idea.
place.
Yeah.
I
Very good
did work
idea.
out to I do need to reach out to our consultants to see where they are with dates and availability. So I'll try to get a tentative calendar that I can put out to the board with them. I did talk to Randy the other day. He called me to see how things were going with reopening. And I said, it's a triage. We're holding our own. We're plugging through it. And he said, completely understand with a lot of the districts that are doing the same thing. And I said, well, I'll get back to them. Maybe definitely like the first week of October, maybe the last week of September. I mean, they're both right here, and to try to get some dates that we both have availability.
That sounds good.
Great.
But we can plan on, like, putting something out to have at the vote?
Yeah, that's why I really think that'd be a great idea.
Okay.
In addition to having something on the website?
Yeah, because it'd be
Yeah,
on the website, but I think, we might have people
Right.
come in that
Exactly.
don't go to our website, for whatever
Right.
reason, and we definitely get people with different viewpoints, because usually that shows up for a vote.
Right. I was on mute. I should be better at this by now.
We were patiently waiting. See, we're modeling,
Yeah,
we're
we
modeling
heard
for
you loud and
students now.
I have so much experience with this. I can't believe I did that. I have at least a week, 2 weeks worth. That brings up, that's the only other item we had on our agenda for board discussion. So that brings us to news worth sharing for the board. If anybody has anything to share.
Just real quick sharing, because the NISBA is coming up the meeting, and our voting rep is Michelle, just to remind you, and your name has been submitted and sent into NISBA.
Lucky you.
Thank you for volunteering, Michelle. That's what he meant to say.
Yeah.
Really, she didn't. We just sent her name in.
Translation.
No, it's really good. It is.
I do have some news worth sharing. I reached out to the administrators of the middle school as the ambassador to the middle school, and learned some interesting things. Also saw a few things on Facebook that I thought were fun and I'd like to share. The middle school now has 2 bunnies as part of the SEL morning activities, and I'm hearing that the students are just falling in love with these bunnies. They're Trixie and Dixie. There's a great campaign that is teaching students not only that they need to wear their mask, but to give them helpful hints on how to care for their mask and how not to share it and how to wash it. Basically treat it like your underwear,
Yep.
which I thought was clever. One of the administrators wanted to make sure that I do a shout out to the SSS, the Student Support Services people. The job that they're doing is absolutely amazing, and it's being recognized everywhere. He also said that we should make sure that we mention that in the middle school, they know it's all about the students, and the students are excited to be back, that they just love being back at the school. But it's also about the faculty, the administrators. They specifically said, do a shout out to Doug and Mary Jo, because without their leadership, none of this would be happening. And he ended it with, thank you for having so much faith in us. And I think that's a really important message to send, not just to us to hear it, but for us to say, yes, we do. We have faith in you, and you're definitely rising to the challenge. So good things happening in the middle school. They also wanted me to make sure that I did mention again, and I know we've already said it, but I want to say it again, that we do still have the free breakfast and lunch, so that maybe even more people will hear it. The other thing is that I did go to the Erie County Association of School Board meeting as the delegate for Iroquois. It was an interesting meeting. Everyone talked about their reopening plans and sports. Those were the 2 big things that everybody talked about. And It's pretty typical, the same kinds of stuff that we're talking about here is what was talked about there, so. Okay.
Thank you.
I just have 2 quick points to share with everybody. The first one, Jane sort of touched on it a little bit at the end there and regarding the middle school, but it's been an issue that I've been following really closely. But the school nutrition waivers have been extended for the remainder of 2020. So those free breakfasts and lunches go till December 31st, 2020. Something that I've been advocating for, that it's time to really extend those indefinitely. We've seen the impact that it has. We've seen that it's being utilized, not just in our own school district, but across the country. And it's really, we see that the funding is there and that it's possible. And so it's time for our lawmakers to step up and make that a permanent program for school districts nationwide.
And I just say something to that effect, though, is that a lot of things are tied to determining how many students we have that get free and reduced lunch when this program isn't in effect, which means our lawmakers also need to recognize that that formula needs to change.
That's a great point.
Yep.
And then the second thing that just wanted to bring to everybody's attention is the agenda committee did have their first meeting regarding the agenda, and Cindy and Doug took our recommendations and has sent policy out to those on the agenda committee. So please check your emails if you haven't already for those documents from Cindy. I know there was proposed meeting times for next week, early next week. So if you could get back to Cindy so we can schedule that second meeting and get some policy changes out to the rest of our board members here.
I also had a comment to make. I was, as the ambassador for Wales Primary, I went out to visit them, and Doug coordinated it for me. And I wanted to tell everyone what a fantastic job the principal and the staff has done out there to make it so welcoming for the students. I was teary-eyed. It was awesome. They were just fantastic. They went way out of their way to make it really feel cozy for the kids and try to make it as much normal as possible.
Anybody else?
Sure.
I can't remember if Michelle and I shared that we went into the high school right before reopening. Can't remember if it was before our last board meeting, but we had a very similar experience in seeing everything that was set up for the kids. And, Dr. Ramirez gave us, I think, the greatest comment he made was, any question you ask me is going to make us better on reopening day. So ask every question you want. And it was just seeing that process of problem solving and hearing questions from people was great to see. So an amazing job done there.
Yeah, I'll second that. And I know prior to that tour, it was up in the air whether or not my student would be attending school in person. And after that, I realized how much care and caution the whole district has been in utilizing. I also got to tour the middle school, thanks to Doug. And same thing, and to shout out to the custodial staff who had to move so much furniture and desks and position them in the right place, and it's pretty great. So hopefully everything's in place so the kids can stay in school as long as possible.
Yeah, I knock on wood, 0 COVID so far.
Yeah, I mean, and it goes to the preparation and the wearing of the masks and social distancing, and that is what's working. So it's awesome.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I really want to get out there because people have to know just from, something came in today and other days. They do great here. they have to carry this to outside activities. We really, please carry this to outside activities, because you don't know who else or where else they've been or who else they've been by when you get there. So please think of that when you're out.
That and the legislative committee is meeting tomorrow. Sorry.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Erie One. The legislative committee is meeting tomorrow at Erie One, so I'm planning on being there. Right? Are you going? Are you going?
No, I won't.
Okay, I am.
Legislative.
Okay.
I think they only are allowing one person to come from each district.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And I have to say, shout out to Dave and his staff for calling and reminding people that the meeting is tomorrow. Thank you.
Fantastic. Am I good?
Back to Sharon.
Okay, and we will need to enter into a brief executive session tonight, but just so that everybody knows, when we come back from executive session, it will just be for the purpose of adjournment. So we will need to step into a brief executive session for, is there something else I have to say? There is.
I'll make a motion to move into executive session to discuss a personnel issue.
Thank you.
Second. Michelle?
Can't turn the lights, can't mute. All right, Sharon, are we all set, Matt? Yeah, we're all set, Sharon.
All right, we need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So
I
moved.
motion, Louise.
Second, Chuck.
Discussion?
Yes, are we sure we
Chuck?
want to go through with this? No.
Why?
It's not even 9:30 yet.
Okay, no worries.
I think I'll be
Very
back here in
okay.
8 hours.
Vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Hi, Louise.
Aye. All those opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Nice to see everybody,
Thank you. Good seeing you.
even if it's remote.
Bye.
Thank you, Sharon. You did a great job.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Thank you.